Chapter 1865. The two guards stood outside, and he placed two round stools against the wall. When Yiqian sat down, he lifted her legs and placed them on his thighs. His slender fingers massaged her with moderate strength. I took a look at him just now. Uncle Chen's condition is recovering well. He can be discharged in a week. The medical record was written in great detail, including the daily changes in Principal Chen's condition. The previous week, when he was in critical condition, the doctor kept watch over him. There was a detailed record every half an hour. After hearing from the guards, Yiqian felt much calmer after reading the medical record. When she saw the suggestion written on the last page, Yiqian smiled. Yes, he can be discharged. I calculated the time. I'll be able to pick up Uncle Chen after my exams. 2 days earlier than you. The exams in military academies are slightly longer than those in normal high schools. She smiled. Xia Jinyuan also felt very happy. After he's discharged, Uncle Chen can't return to Nan province for the time being. Why don't I arrange for Uncle Chen to live in the government's family compound? Then I'll transfer 2 guards to take care of Uncle Chen's daily life. Since it concerned Principal Chen's daily life, Yiqian nodded without hesitation. As long as Uncle Chen is willing, I have no objections. However, although she didn't hesitate, Yiqian frowned when she thought about Principal Chen's status. She thought for a while before continuing. With Uncle Chen's status, it doesn't seem appropriate for him to live in a crowded place, especially in a government agency's family compound. Do you think they'll recognize Uncle Chen? What she said made sense. Xia Jinyuan fell silent for a moment. When Uncle Chen wakes up, we'll ask him for his opinion. Also, let's take a look at the military's arrangements. Yiqian flipped to the Nan Province Police investigation report. As soon as her gaze landed on it, the smile on her beautiful face disappeared. Her indifferent expression suddenly became sharp. The results of the investigation were: the nurse made mistakes in her work, and murder was ruled out. The word murder was like 2 bullets hitting her heart with a bang. Her brain and nerves immediately caused a thick fog of blood to appear before her eyes. She looked up and stared at Xia Jinyuan with her red eyes. She asked angrily, "Murder? Why did the military suspect murder at first?" At that time, Captain Xia had told him that Uncle Chen's accident was due to a problem with his foredrip. He did not mention that it was suspected of being a murder. Like you, I only found out after receiving the 2 reports. The military first suspected murder, then asked the Southern Province Police to investigate thoroughly. After 20 days of investigation, the Southern Province Police concluded that it was indeed a medical accident and ruled out murder. The military also concluded the investigation and confirmed that it was a medical accident and not a murder. Yiqian looked at him as she spoke in a low voice. She flipped to the military investigation report. Her side profile was thin and sharp, and her chin was tense the whole time. When she saw the military's question about Yi Jifan, Xia Jinyuan clearly felt that her entire body's hostility had suddenly multiplied. He could see a strong murderous intent on her face. "Calm down and read slowly," Xia Jinyuan calmly reminded her. His hands kept massaging her tense thighs and calves. After finishing the mountain training, everyone's legs were so sore that every step they took hurt their muscles. When Yiqian rushed to the hospital and jumped out of the car, the muscles in her legs went out of control. She staggered a few steps before stabilizing herself and not falling. She was a girl who could endure. No matter how tough or tiring it was, she could grit her teeth and endure it. Chapter 1866. She was so good at controlling herself that it made him a little worried. He was afraid that if he held back too much, he would end up hurting her. Therefore, whenever he had the chance, he would help her loosen her muscles and bones and check if there were any bone injuries. There was an old saying in the army: recruits are more trustworthy, veterans are more sick, and there are more problems that are neither old nor new. The phrase veterans are more sick meant that after being in the army for a long time, they would have problems all over their bodies, especially their knees. If they didn't take good care of them, they would be plagued with illnesses, and it would affect their future battles. He increased the strength of his massage, and Yi Jianjian felt the pain. The red in her eyes that were staring at him gradually faded, and she slowly regained her calm. Yi Jifan's mother has been recuperating at the People's Hospital of Nam Province. Uncle Chun had gastric bleeding and was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Regiment Commander Liu and Political Commissar Yin were running up and down with their men, so it was inevitable that they would run into Yi Jifan. The report contained a conversation between Regiment Commander Liu and Political Commissar Yin. Yi Jifan did run into them by accident. The military also questioned Uncle Chun privately. Uncle Chun said that it had nothing to do with Yi Jifan. Yi Qian, even if you're angry now, it's useless. Sometimes, things are just so coincidental that it seems like a case of murder. Xia Jinyuan looked at Yi Qian coldly. Even his voice was cold. The things in the report have already been investigated. What's there to be angry about? Yi Jifan only came to visit Uncle Chun once. How could you lose control of your emotions so easily? If he really had bad intentions, he would be happier if you lost control of your emotions. You can only handle things calmly. Anger will only make things worse. Yi Qian, you need to calm down right now. With that said, Xia Jinyuan took the file without hesitation. You need to calm down right now. Get some sleep and wait for Uncle Chun to wake up. Yi Qian knew that he was in a bad mood, so he didn't refute Xia Jinyuan's words. He took a few deep breaths to suppress the anger in his heart. Okay, I'll rest for a while. I'll look at it after I calm down. I'll ask the guards to bring a folding bed over. You can rest here. In her current situation, it was better not to look at it anymore. If she also noticed the strangeness of Uncle Chen's words, her emotions would only fluctuate even more. It seemed that Yi Jifan's influence on Yi Qian was still quite big, even bigger than Yi Ying's appearance. The guard brought the foldable bed over, not forgetting to bring 2 quilts that reeked of disinfectant. Let's each take half a side. There was only one folding bed. Yi Qian, who was hugging the quilt, suggested, I'll sleep on this side, and you can sleep on the other side. Let's rest together. It was tiring enough to accompany her. She couldn't let him suffer. Upon hearing this, Xia Jinyuan gestured to the small foldable bed. I'm afraid that if I lie down, the foot of the bed will break. I don't choose a place to sleep. You should rest. Last week, her period had just ended. She had to train twice in a row and didn't rest in bed for a single day. It was said that girls must pay attention to keeping warm once a month, otherwise there would be endless trouble. She had run in the rain and rolled in the snow for 2 months in a row. Now that she was back and had a place to sleep, how could he let her suffer? She was afraid that he would suffer, and he was afraid that she would suffer. In the end, the Major's domineering personality kicked in. He carried Yi Qian and placed him directly on the long table. You're so dishonest. You have to insist on arguing with me. Don't you know that I'm actually more stubborn than anyone else? Who can argue with me? Don't move, don't talk. Uncle Chun is still sleeping inside. The domineering Major was in high spirits. He bent down and personally took off Yi Qian's military boots and jacket. Chapter 1867. Yi Qian really couldn't move. If she moved, the long table she was sitting on would creak. Not only was she afraid of waking Uncle Chun up, she was also afraid of alerting the 2 guards standing outside. After taking off his jacket, Yi Qian hurriedly covered his belt with her hands. You can't take off your pants. It'll make it easier for me to get up in the morning. She felt a little unnatural, afraid that he would really take off her pants. No, I'm not thinking of taking them off. Seeing her unnatural expression, Xia Jinyuan lowered his head to hold back his laughter and carried her to the foldable bed. Go to sleep. Have a good night's sleep. We can still sleep for 3 hours after the shift changes at 7. We've overworked our brains during this period of time, so we need to rest well. It won't be too late to think about things when we wake up. Faced with a determined Major, Yi Qian lay down in bed and got up on her elbows. She still asked worriedly, How are you going to sleep? Get the guards to bring another layer of blankets and sleep on the floor. Xia Jinyuan hugged the blankets and put his feet on the long table. He leaned against the corner of the wall that was warmed by the heater and raised his eyebrows. This is good. The heater is facing us, so we don't have to worry about catching a cold. It was still winter in the capital, so the hospital was still using central heating. Yi Jian watched him close his eyes, as if he was too tired to say another word. Only then did she lay back down gently on the bed. She was a person who could calm down quickly. She was no longer as angry as she was before. She snuggled a little deeper into the bed. Only her short black hair was visible, so he couldn't tell if she had closed her eyes or fallen asleep. Xia Jinyuan quietly opened his eyes and saw that she was lying motionless under the blankets. Only then did he relax and close his eyes again. There was a faint smile on his handsome face, and he soon fell asleep. The shift changed at 7 o'clock. Xia Jinyuan only slept for 2 hours before opening his eyes. Sleeping in this position was not comfortable at all. 2 hours was his limit. His legs were long and slender to begin with, so when he put them down, they were like a bridge. When he put them down, his legs were numb and didn't feel like his own legs at all. He only gently put on his military boots when his blood flow returned to normal. 2 hours of deep sleep had swept away most of the fatigue in his body. He stood up and looked into the room. He met the eyes of Principal Chun, who had just woken up less than 10 minutes ago. The two of you are too good at tormenting people. Why didn't you go to the hotel next door to rest? Can you sleep well if you sleep outside? Principal Chun lectured a little unhappily. After more than 40 days of high-intensity training, you should have a good rest when you come back. How can you mess around? During the emergency treatment, the military was afraid that something would happen to him. So they told him that Yi Qian was training with Xia Jinyuan and asked him to persevere and wait for Yi Qian to return. Although he didn't know where the training was, if it could make Yi Qian neglect his studies, it must be a very important and high-intensity special training. He did not feel sorry for Yi Qian during training. Soldiers did not have the right to think that training was tiring. He would only feel sorry when training was over. He would feel sorry for not having a good rest. How can I be at ease if I don't see you? Also, don't you know Yi Qian? If she doesn't come to see you, even if I tie her up and take her to the hotel, she will still find a way to escape. Xia Jinyuan poured a glass of warm water and handed it to him. Have a glass of water first. The guard said that Uncle Chen didn't like to be served by others. It was as if he was a good-for-nothing who could only be taken care of. Xia Jinyuan kept that in mind and did not dare to feed him water. Uncle Chun, she hasn't woken up yet. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you a few questions. I need you to answer them for me. Since this was a serious matter, Xia Jinyuan asked directly. I want to know if you have any scruples about Yi Jifan. Chapter 1868. Xia Jinyuan's words really gave Principal Chen a fright. He thought that Xia Jinyuan had found something. No, it was impossible to find anything. If the military couldn't find anything, how could he have the time to investigate in the middle of training? Therefore, he didn't find anything. He just had his suspicions. Principal Chen's body was injured, and his brain wasn't as fast as it used to be. He lowered his head and took a sip of warm water. He asked calmly, "Why do you ask? Uncle Chun, take a look at this." Xia Jinyuan's gaze slid past Principal Chen's face. He took out a page of the report that he hadn't shown to Yi Qian. This is one of the military's investigation reports. It's also the military's investigation into whether there's anything wrong with Yi Jifan. They want to confirm what you said. If he had only had his suspicions before, then Uncle Chen's act of drinking water just now confirmed his suspicions. Uncle Chun must have some misgivings about Yi Jifan. In other words, he also suspected that there was something fishy going on this time. It might have something to do with Yi Jifan. Principal Chun glanced at the single piece of A4 paper on top of the quilt. He put the glass of water aside and picked up the report. He unhurriedly opened it. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Principal Chen opened the A4 paper that Xia Jinyuan had folded for convenience. Although he looked calm on the surface, he wasn't calm on the inside. He casually glanced at it and sneered. There's nothing wrong with what you said. There's nothing false about cooperating with the military's investigation. Xia Jinyuan did not expect to get anything out of Principal Chen immediately. He was not in a hurry, but the color in his eyes darkened a little. He said slowly and elegantly, "You told the military that you and Director Yi Jifan did not have much of a personal grudge. This can be understood as a personal grudge. No matter how big or small it is, you and Yi Jifan have a personal grudge. In the end, you said, I don't think there's a need for him to do something that would ruin his career. Uncle Chun, I don't think, is a term of uncertainty and suspicion. It means that you've already suspected Yi Jifan. Principal Chun, who was listening quietly, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Deep in his eyes, there was a well-concealed surprise. Even the military didn't suspect him, but he actually suspected him from a few words. As expected of the Weapon King, this kind of sensitivity, this kind of intelligence, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Principal Chun was also a king among the snipers. If he didn't make a move, the people around him naturally wouldn't be able to tell. When the two generations of Weapon Kings met face to face, Xia Jinyuan knew that the veteran king was still better. This was because the veteran king had fooled the military investigators and made the military think that Yi Jifan really had nothing to do with the incident. If he didn't know how much Uncle Chun loved Yi Qian and how much he hated Yi Jifan's family, he would also have been fooled by Uncle Chun like the military. In the end, you said, my incident was actually just a normal medical accident. It seemed more like you were deliberately trying to cover up the truth and defend Yi Jifan. Uncle Chun, at first, I didn't quite understand why you said such contradictory things, but when you drank the water just now, it made me certain that you were indeed suspecting Yi Jifan. Although he spoke slowly, there were no pauses in between. This meant that he didn't give Principal Chun a chance to interrupt him midway. He controlled the entire rhythm of the conversation in his own hands. Uncle Chun, I just want to know why you did this. Is it because of Yi Qian? If it's because of her, you should have told me. Chapter 1869. Because. Xia Jinyuan paused. His dark eyes were filled with respect as he looked at Principal Chun. Because, like you, I only want Yi Qian to be safe and sound. I can't bear to see her get hurt because of Yi Jifan. Principal Chun was very sure of this. He had seen how much the young major in front of him protected Yi Qian over the years. When old uncle was still alive, he once said, "In this world, only Major Xia is worthy of our Yi girl." The worthy that old uncle was talking about was not a good match in terms of family background. He was referring to Major Xia's love and care for Yi Qian. Yi Qian could rely on him for the rest of his life. If something were to happen to Yi Qian, this young major would be the only person that Yi girl could trust. Even if they could not become husband and wife in the future, Xia Jinyuan was still a man worthy of Yi girl's trust. That's right. I do suspect that Yi Jifan had something to do with me giving the wrong medicine. However, it's only a suspicion. I don't have any evidence. After thinking for less than 2 minutes, Principal Chun stopped beating around the bush with Xia Jinyuan. Principal Chun, who had walked through the gates of hell countless times, had a cold expression on his thin face. He said calmly, "Go and see if Yi girl has woken up. It's a long story. There are some things that I can't let Yi girl know for the time being." Xia Jinyuan could read the seriousness on Principal Chen's serious face. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart as he quickly got up. After confirming that Yi Qian had not woken up, he returned. Almost 50 days ago, Martyr's son Xueqing's former comrade came to Shuku village to look for me. He told me about Martyr's son Xueqing's past in the army. Taking advantage of the fact that Yi Qian was still unconscious, Principal Chun sped up his narration. He started from Chief Kai's visit to Shuku village, to Chief Kai's suspicions, and how there were people who wanted to harm Martyr's son Xueqing. Chief Kai suspects that Martyr's son Xueqing's sacrifice was actually due to an assassination attempt, and it's very likely that it was done by someone close to her. Xia Jinyuan's handsome face was getting colder and colder. He couldn't help holding his breath as he listened to the conversation. His eyes were fixed on the small glass window in the ward. When Yi Qian woke up, the first thing he would do was stand at the glass window and look into the ward. This way, he could immediately interrupt the conversation. Even after Bureau Chief Kai retired from the army, he still couldn't find any clues. That was until he accidentally met Yi Qian, who bore a striking resemblance to Martyr's son Xueqing in Tongzhou. Tongzhou? Wasn't that a mission to clear out the cultists? He even carried out this mission with Yi Qian. At that time, Chief Kai was busy and couldn't talk to Yi Qian in detail. Before he left, he told Yi Qian that if she wanted to know about martyr son Xueqing's past, she could contact him at any time. After that, Yi Qian didn't contact him. Because of Yi Qian's appearance, Chief Kai recalled the past and returned to his own army, which was the army that martyr son Xueqing was in when she was alive. Chief Kai couldn't accept this. The army had information on all of them, but there was no information on martyr son Xueqing, who sacrificed herself for the country. There wasn't even a single word about her. Yi Qian's mother was an outstanding female soldier when she was alive. She was also one of the first batch of female soldiers to officially join the female special forces. She had made countless contributions to the country and was personally received by the president during the commendation ceremony. She was one of the first batch of female soldiers who had made countless contributions to the country and had the highest honor. In the end, the army that she was in when she was alive didn't even have a single word about her. Her contributions to the army were erased just like that. It was equivalent to erasing martyr son Xueqing's entire being. Chapter 1870. What did this mean? This meant that it was a covert denial of the existence of such a martyr, denial of this person, denial of all this person's contributions. It made everyone forget her, completely erasing her from everyone's memories. At this moment, Xia Jinyuan, who was also a soldier, was furious. How dare they? That's right, they are indeed brave. When this matter was brought up again, Principal Chun was also angry. No soldier could accept this fact. This was an insult to a soldier. If martyr son Xueqing had made a big mistake, it would be fine. But she didn't. She was a soldier who sacrificed herself for the country. How could she be treated so unfairly? After martyr son Xueqing passed away, the army sent her belongings back. Among her belongings was a very precious hornless dragon jade pendant. When this jade pendant landed in Yi Jifan's hands, it became a protective talisman for his meteoric rise as an official. Xia Jinyuan immediately frowned. Uncle Chun, I don't quite understand what you're saying. How could a piece of jade become a protective talisman for his meteoric rise? First of all, Yi Jifan was able to become an official because he was protected by martyr son Xueqing. The government made him a village official so that he could take good care of son Xueqing. Later, the village official became an official in the town and gradually became an official in the city. Uncle Jin said that with the protection of the jade pendant, Yi Jifan would rise higher and higher in the ranks, but he would also fall even more miserably. The young major's brows were already furrowed. It was obvious that he didn't believe it. Principal Chin sighed and said seriously, I didn't quite believe it at the time, but I knew that Uncle Jin wouldn't say such things for no reason. Also, he said that the jade pendant wasn't something good and told Yi Jifan not to take it back. Although I didn't believe it, I still took it to heart. It wasn't until I was hospitalized with gastric bleeding that Yi Jifan approached me in the name of returning martyr son Xueqing's relic to the little girl. I suddenly thought of the jade pendant, what Chief Kai said, and what Uncle Jin said. Thinking of this, Principal Chun said, martyr son Xueqing used her own life to get an official position for Director Yi so that her daughter could be taken care of. In the end, Director Yi got the benefits, but forgot the kindness. As he said these words, he had been paying attention to Yi Jifan's expression. He saw that his face had suddenly turned cold, and a deep viciousness had flitted across it. He knew that Yi Jifan had become suspicious. He suspected that he knew something. His expression told me that the benefit of the jade pendant was to protect his promotion. Uncle was right. I was still waiting for him to come again and deliver martyr son Xueqing's relic, but something happened to me at around 11 that night. After saying so much, Principal Chun drank all the water in the cup. I warned Yi Jifan, and something happened. I was lying when I said that I didn't suspect him, but everything needs evidence. The military and the Southern Province Police did their best to investigate. Even the doctors and nurses in the hospital who knew that I was hospitalized were investigated. There is no evidence that pointed to Yi Jifan wanting to murder me. Major Xia, if you were me, you wouldn't insist that Yi Jifan has a problem. I know that there's a high possibility that he has a problem, but I have no evidence. Moreover, if he really did do it, his actions made me happy. What does this mean? It means that the jade pendant is important. Chapter 1871. Headmaster Chun, who was originally angry because of Yi Jian's mother's incident, sneered coldly. His actions are a sign of guilt. It also shows that there is someone behind the jade pendant who is secretly supporting him. Just now, I said that Chief Kai of the Tongzhou police station suspected that martyr's son Xueqing was sacrificed. He also said that he erased all of her deeds in the army. Major Xia, with your intelligence, you should know why I didn't directly say that I was actually suspecting Yi Jifan. Xia Jinyuan, whose face was already cold, answered in a deep voice, because you wanted to help Yi Qian lure out the murderer who killed his mother. Because at this point, you know that the murderer's identity is definitely not simple. Because he has the ability to protect Yi Jifan from a village official to a provincial official. At the mention of Yi Jifan, the young major's dark eyes rippled. I investigated Yi Jifan a long time ago and found that there was someone behind him, but I didn't find anything. This also shows that this person's identity is not simple and is very well hidden. There's one more thing I need to tell you. Yi Jifan has already connected with my family Xia's enemy, the Du family. The Du family's chief of staff, Du, has been at odds with my father since he was young. Chief of staff. Principal Chin's expression changed drastically. He asked in shock, the General Staff Department? Yes, the General Staff Department, but he's a deputy. Xia Jinyuan nodded. His thin lips pressed together and the coldness in his eyes deepened. It's quite surprising that he has connections with the Du family. The eldest son of Chief of Staff Du Kaiwei, is the commander of a brigade in the Nongguang military region. After participating in a drug production cleanup operation in the village, he was targeted. One time, he went out for dinner and was suddenly attacked with a knife. He was coincidentally saved by Yi Jifan, who was eating with him. It said that if Yi Jifan hadn't blocked the knife, it would have directly cut Du Kaiwei's neck and killed him on the spot. Now that you've heard about this jade pendant, even I have my suspicions. Such a big coincidence. Is it a coincidence? Or was it arranged by someone? It's such a coincidence that I saved the eldest son of Chief of Staff Du, who doesn't get along with my family Xia. Even the experienced Principal Chun couldn't help but gasp. You mean, the person behind the jade pendant knows that the Du family and family Xia don't get along, so they deliberately let Yi Jifan get close to the Du family. Well, it turns out that I didn't think about it. It was you who mentioned the jade pendant that made me suspicious. When Yi Qian was adopted by Yi Jifan's family, they didn't beat her or scold her. They raised a smart girl into a good-for-nothing. Uncle Chen, what does this mean? This means that someone instigated Yi Jifan to raise Yi Qian into a cripple. He purposely got that comrade of martyr's son Xueqing to tell Chief Kai that Yi Qian had died after falling into the water. That person didn't want others to know about Yi Qian's existence. But that person had some misgivings and had no choice but to keep Yi Qian alive. But he was very unwilling. Even if he kept Yi Qian alive, he only wanted to see a good-for-nothing like Yi Qian. That's why he instigated Yi Jifan to turn Yi Jifan into a cripple. Xia Jinyuan was terrifying. His logical thinking and analytical skills were as rigorous as a net. As long as he caught everything in his net, as long as he could string everything together, he wouldn't miss anything. It was just a combination of what Headmaster Chun and Chief Kai had said, combined with Yi Jifan's various guesses, one after another, popping out from his mouth. It wasn't a whimsical thought, but a logical and well-founded one after another, cutting into the facts and analyzing them one by one. Chapter 1872. Xia Jinyuan's analysis was like a clap of thunder, one after another. Principal Chun was originally leaning against the headboard of the bed, but after Xia Jinyuan's in-depth analysis, he couldn't help but sit up straight. Although he was thin, his expression was still firm. The more he listened, the more serious his expression became. Major Xia, who was born in a military family and whose elders and brothers were either in politics or the military, was definitely more politically sensitive than a retired soldier like him. Every word he said would not be shot without aim, and his speculations would not be made carelessly. On the contrary, Headmaster Chun felt his back drenched in cold sweat after hearing his speculation. He and Uncle Jin had both made a mistake. Uncle Jin and I have both made a very serious mistake. Principal Chun, who had a serious expression, punched the bed with one hand and said in annoyance, "All this time, Uncle Jin and I have only thought that Yi Jifan's family treated Yi Qian this way because they didn't want the little Yi girl to be too outstanding and overshadow Yi Ying. That's why son Dongqing always made things difficult for the little Yi girl. She either hit or scolded her because she was afraid that the little Yi girl would steal Yi Ying's limelight. It wasn't just Principal Chun and Uncle Jin who thought this way, but everyone in the village thought this way. Son Dongqing couldn't bear to see other people doing better than her, and other people's children being stronger than her own, so she would definitely do this. They all thought this way and never thought about it in other ways. I heard from Uncle Jin that not long after son Xueqing was buried, old Madam Yi started spreading rumors in the village. She said that her eldest son and eldest daughter-in-law died early because of the little Yi girl. Whoever wants to take in the little Yi girl, beware of bad luck. With just one sentence, she convicted Yi Qian, causing everyone in the village to avoid Yi Qian like the plague, afraid that they would be tainted with bad luck. Xia Jinyuan had never heard of this part of Yi Qian's past. When he heard it, every word turned into fine steel needles that pierced his heart. It pierced his heart until it hurt, causing his handsome face to twist into a vicious expression. How old was Little Fox? He was only 2 or 3 years old. That was a time when farming was a big collective and there was no guarantee of livelihood. It was a time when news was blocked. No matter if they were in trouble or sick, the first thing they would do was to pray to the gods and Buddha. There was a rumor that the little fox was a jinx. The Yi family was really vicious. When Xia Jinyuan heard the pain in her heart, she sneered softly and said, "From the looks of it, old Madam Yi is paving the way for Yi Jifan to adopt Yi Qian. He's a jinx to his parents." Even if the village wants to adopt Yi Qian for the sake of the pension, they're scared by the fact that he's a jinx. A jinx in his life? To treat the little fox so cruelly and viciously. It was only right that he cursed them until they had nothing left. Principal Chen only knew about Yi Qian's past from Uncle General knowing all this. He felt even more pity for Yi Qian, and his heart ached for this little girl. Principal Chen looked at the middle-aged major, who was so angry that his handsome face was filled with anger, and felt gratified. Although Commander-in-Chief, Xia's only son was the son of God, he was also a man who valued friendship and righteousness, and had the demeanor of a gentleman. If one day he was no longer around, with Major Xia taking care of him, Principal Chun would be able to answer to Uncle Jin at that time, who knew why the Yi family did this. When old Madam Yi lost her son, everyone sympathized with her. After she lost her beloved daughter-in-law, the rumor that the little girl was a jinx was much more credible than the usual gossip. Chapter 1873. Yi Jifan, who happened to be the village official, was furious because of this. He said that old Madam Yi was too foolish and that Yi Qian wouldn't be able to live in the village in the future. Uncle Jin was still in the army at that time. By the time he returned, everything had been settled. Yi Jifan didn't care that his family would be cursed by Yi Qian and went with son Dongqing to bring Yi Qian back. To the villagers, it was a happy ending. They didn't have to worry that Yi Qian would be arranged to stay at their house for a while. Not long after, old Madam Yi and old man Yi left Shuka village together and went to the coastal city with their daughter and son-in-law. The reason they left was that Yi Qian's life was too tough and would be a curse to her. The villagers more or less believed in fate and didn't suspect anything. Even when son Dongqing treated Yi Qian badly, the villagers didn't say anything. Yi Qian's life was too tough. Son Dongqing raised her well. It was normal for a child to be beaten and scolded. If a child was disobedient, wouldn't they also be beaten and scolded? But who knew that not only did son Dongqing beat and scolded Yi Qian, sometimes she also didn't give Yi Qian food to eat. Other than dressing similarly to Yi Ying, who knew what she did when she closed the door. Principal Chun recalled the expression on his uncle's face when he talked about these things. Every wrinkle on his weathered face was filled with deep guilt. It was a deep guilt towards Yi Qian. Even though Xia Jinyuan knew that Yi Qian's childhood wasn't smooth sailing, he never thought that it would be so tragic. Suppressing his anger, he closed his eyes gently and suppressed the surging anger in his heart. He said to Principal Chun, "Uncle Chun, tell me more about Yi Qian's childhood. I'll see if there are any other suspicious points." He wanted to know everything about her. He didn't participate in her past, but he wanted to know everything. He wanted to know how painful it was for her back then so that he could dote on her more in the future. He wanted to make up for all the pain she had suffered. He wanted to take responsibility for the rest of his life. Little Ye's childhood. Sigh. Before he could say anything, Principal Chin's long sigh turned into a sharp thorn that pierced straight into his heart after entering his ears. It hurt so much that he had to clench his fists tightly to suppress his anger. At least in the eyes of the villagers, Yi Jifan is living a good life. Every time he comes back, the first thing he says is, "Yi Qian, come out and see what delicious food I brought for you." After a long time, the neighbors started to feel that Yi Jifan had not let big brother and sister-in-law down. He wasn't afraid of being jinxed by bringing his niece, Yi Qian, into his home. "Every time I come back from the army, I'll ask about little Yi. Naturally, what I hear is that little Yi is doing well. She has food, clothes, and even goes to school." Later on, little Yi grew up a little. Everyone in the village knows that little Yi is naughty. She likes to get into trouble and likes to lie. Sometimes, Ying has to apologize on her behalf. When she was in 4th or 5th grade, she almost froze to death in the snow. Luckily, Uncle Jin found her and brought her home. Unfortunately, little Yi at that time wasn't the little Yi now. She didn't accept any help from me at all. Every time I went to look for her, I would be scolded by Sun Donqing. After looking for her a few times, I gave up. Just like that, little Yi lived in Yi Jifan's house. On the surface, everyone thought that she was living a good life. Scolding, beating, and framing became a common occurrence in the family. If she didn't say anything, no one would know. Chapter 1874. Under such circumstances, none of the villagers would stand up for Yi Qian. Even though the villagers were down-to-earth and narrow-minded and did not stir up trouble, in the face of Sun Donqing's scolding and beating of Yi Qian, they believed that as long as Yi Qian had food to eat, a place to stay, and a place to go to school, that would be enough. It was normal for them to be scolded and beaten for being naughty. Faced with Yi Qian's tragic past, Xia Jinyuan clenched his fists several times before he asked in a low and hoarse voice, "Did Yi Jifan ever scold or beat Yi Qian?" No, it was always Sun Donqing who stepped in, so it was not convenient for Uncle Jin to stand up for Yi Qian sometimes. When he saw that she was unwilling to come back, he just assumed that Yi Qian was doing well, so he gave up on bringing her back. Principal Chun sighed as he talked about Yi Qian's childhood. It wasn't until the second day of Chinese New Year that Yi Qian came to her senses and resolutely left the Yi family to look for Uncle General. You know what happened after that. That was when Yi Qian's bitter days finally came to an end. As for her past, if Uncle Jin hadn't asked about it, I wouldn't have known that she was living such a bitter life. Uncle Jin blamed himself and kept telling me that he blamed himself for not persevering and leaving the child in a wolf's den. After hearing about Yi Qian's childhood, Xia Jinyuan, whose eyes were slightly red, was silent for a long time before he said in a hoarse voice, "Yi Qian almost froze to death outside in the 4th or 5th year of Chinese New Year. What was the cause?" On the eve of Chinese New Year, Yi Qian did something wrong and angered old Madam Ye's one-eyed son-in-law, Sun Yaozu, who kicked him. Old Madam Ye also thought that Yi Qian was a jinx to her and was an unlucky person. So she ordered Sun Yaozu to throw Yi Qian, who was pretending to be unconscious, to the edge of the field. Just like that, Sun Yaozu's name was engraved in Xia Jinyuan's heart. He would settle the score with him and old Madam Yi. Life had given his little fox so many trials and tribulations, but she had never bowed her head and admitted defeat. Once she woke up, it was as if she had been reborn from the ashes. No matter how difficult the road ahead was, She had persevered and walked on with gratitude. Principal Chun told Xia Jinyuan everything he knew. Xia Jinyuan not only felt distressed, but also found all kinds of suspicious points while digesting all the past events. Yi Jifan never hit or scolded Yi Qian. He never asked Yi Qian what trouble he got into or what lies he told. He also never cared about Yi Qian's studies. Even when Sun Dongqing hit or scolded Yi Qian, he didn't ask. It wasn't until the incident on the second day of Chinese New Year, when Yi Qian was forced to drop out of school, that Yi Jifan stood up for the first time. He said that Yi Qian got into trouble because of him as her uncle. In order to prevent her from continuing to affect the school, he asked Yi Qian to drop out of school and go home. This was the only time Yi Jifan came to school for Yi Qian. It was for no other reason than to ask Yi Qian to drop out of school. After connecting the previous analysis with Yi Qian's childhood, Xia Jinyuan's eyes turned cold. He said in a low voice, Yi Jifan didn't get involved in Yi Qian's matters because he wanted to protect himself. If anything happened, he could push all the blame to Sun Dongqing. The incident on the second day of Chinese New Year made Yi Jifan think that the time was right. He could directly ruin Yi Qian's studies and make her drop out of school because of her reputation. As the mayor, he didn't use his power for personal gain, which showed that he was a fair person. Uncle Chun, you still have to hide our conversation from Yi Qian. I need to investigate a few more things. I'll let you know if I have any leads. Chapter 1875. What he could be sure of now was that firstly, someone had indeed killed Sun Xueqing. Second, this person was no ordinary person. He already had a certain amount of power back then, to be able to support Yi Jifan all the way to the top. He must be even more powerful now. Third, why did this person kill martyr Sun Xueqing? Why did he want to cripple Yi Qian? What was the big secret behind all of this? He actually involved the next generation and caused Yi Qian to suffer so much. Fourth, did old Madame Yi and Yi Jifan know anything? Fifth, why did Sun Yaozu want to kill Yi Qian, a child? Sixth, Yi Jifan was now in contact with the Du family. Was this person the one who pulled the strings? Was it so that Yi Jifan could contact the Du family to deal with the family Xia and Yi Qian? Everything needed to be investigated, and he had to start from the death of martyr Sun Xueqing. He had to use this as a breakthrough point to slowly tear apart the case. At the same time, he would tell old man Xia everything and have him pay attention to the Du family's recent movements. He would see if he could find any clues about the person behind the hornless dragon jade pendant. What do you want to investigate? Principal Chin's expression immediately darkened. No matter what you're investigating, it's very dangerous. There are too many things to investigate, Uncle Chun. I don't understand why someone would want to make things difficult for Yi Qian. I don't understand why they would want to cripple Yi Qian. The matter was too complicated. Even the intelligent and meticulous Xia Jinyuan couldn't straighten everything out in one go. Seeing Principal Chin's expression suddenly turn cold and worried that he would act rashly, Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, I won't investigate rashly. That's good, but you've always been steady, so I'm not worried. Although Principal Chun said this, the courage on his face slowly disappeared into his eyes. He glanced at the young major who was wholeheartedly concerned about Yi Qingtang and sighed softly. It seemed that he still had something to say, but was hesitating whether to say it or not. Xia Jinyuan poured a glass of warm water for Principal Chun and himself. Holding the glass, he stared at Principal Chin's thin face. His clear and dark eyes held a faint smile as he looked into Principal Chin's eyes. You don't have to worry about anything when it comes to me. Yi Qian isn't just my girlfriend, she's also my comrade. In the future, she'll be the love of my life. Uncle Chun, before he passed away, he told me to take good care of Yi Qian, to protect my wife like a real man, to protect her, to love her. I promised Uncle that I'd use my entire life to treat Yi Qian well. His last words moved Principal Chun. He knew that Xia Jinyuan could tell that he was hesitating because of Yi Qian. If you want to say it, you can say it now. If you're still hesitant or have any misgivings, you can say it the next time we meet. I'll listen. Xia Jinyuan had always been very patient when it came to Yi Qian. He could tell that Principal Chun was in a difficult position, so he didn't press him. He only smiled and said, "Whatever happened to her in the past or in the future, I'll accept it unconditionally." Principal Chun, who was already moved, laughed. "Major Xia, that night at the snowy highlands, you played mind games with me. Now you're much more skilled at it. You can say what I want to hear the moment you open your mouth." Actually, Yi Qian herself isn't too clear about this. She only knows that her father isn't old Madame Ye's biological son, but she doesn't know that her father isn't Yixin Fan. Chapter 1876. What did he mean? Xia Jinyuan narrowed his eyes and looked at Principal Chun. "I need you to explain it more clearly." "I can't explain it clearly. Uncle Jin only told me that Yixin Fan's father isn't Yixin Fan. If you have time, go back to Shuka village." Chief Kai sent over a diary written by martyr's son Xueqing. "I didn't read it, and neither did Chief Kai. Maybe there's an answer in it." Xia Jinyuan nodded. He definitely had to get the diary. He would take Yi Qian with him. "If you want to investigate Yi Xinfan's mother, I can give you the contact of a person." Before Principal Chun could finish his sentence, Xia Jinyuan suddenly stood up. Principal Chun realized something and immediately turned to look at the door of the ward. He saw Yi Qian. Yi Jian seemed to have not woken up yet. She stared at Headmaster Chun, who was leaning against the bed, with her dark eyes. Her look made Headmaster Chun very worried. He turned his head and quickly asked Xia Jinyuan, "This girl, did she hear anything?" "Don't worry." Just as Xia Jinyuan was speaking, Yi Qian seemed to wake up. The moment the door was pushed open, a figure rushed to the bedside like lightning. "Ayaya, you little girl. My old bones are about to be crushed by you." Principal Chun didn't know whether to laugh or cry when Yi Qian hugged him tightly. This girl rushed over in such a hurry and still managed to avoid his hand that was holding the syringe. Sigh. He had made her worry. It was not that Yi Jian had not woken up, but she was so surprised that she was stunned. She hugged Headmaster Chin's shoulders with both hands and did not want to let go. She said in a muffled voice, "You're so skinny that only your bones are left. At that time, you promised me that you would take good care of yourself, but now, you see, Uncle Chun, you went back on your words." She didn't cry because she knew that her family didn't like to see her cry. She didn't feel sad because she was afraid that her emotions would affect Principal Chun. It's good to be thinner. Thinner people are more energetic and healthy when they get older. You, on the other hand, have lost a lot of weight. You've lost so much weight that there isn't much flesh on your face. Principal Chun gently patted Yi Qian, who was trembling slightly. This child was so obedient that it made one's heart ache. She knew that he didn't like her and would cry at the slightest thing, but she had been holding it in, afraid that she would make him unhappy. He couldn't understand why someone would want to make things difficult for such a well-behaved and obedient child who had no parents. Xia Jinyuan moved a chair to the side of the ward, put his arm around Yi Qian's shoulder, and asked her to sit down. "Uncle Chun just woke up. Stay here and chat with him. I'll go get breakfast." His original plan was to return to the military base after sending Yi Qian back to school, but now he had to change his plan. He had to go to Shuka village first, so Yi Qian could only go back to school alone. The 4-day break was a little rushed. If he went to Shuku village, he wouldn't be able to go to the National University of Science and Technology of China. Xia Jinyuan, who had rebooked his plane ticket, came up with a bowl of plain porridge. He happened to see the doctor doing his rounds. After the doctor finished writing the medical record, he smiled and said, "I didn't expect you to be able to understand these medications. I almost thought that you were a military doctor." He then said to Principal Chun, "Your child is really smart. She can even teach herself medicine." Yi Qian was changing Principal Chen's foredrip. She had inserted too many needles recently, and there were countless needle holes on Principal Chen's arms. There were also many bruises left behind from the needles. The nurse came over and inserted 2 needles, but there was no blood flow back. Yi Qian disinfected her hands and asked the nurse to go to the side. She then inserted the needles into Principal Chen's arms with familiarity. This made the doctors around her think that she was a military doctor. Chapter 1877. Xiao Jinyuan suddenly remembered that night in Fujian town. The soldier who was chasing after the gang leader was shot. At that time, it was Yi Jian who assisted the military doctor to complete the operation. When the military doctor was cleaning the gunshot wound, Yi Jian would be able to prepare the necessary surgical tools and pass them to the military doctor accurately. At that time, he thought that the military doctor had told Yi Jian in advance, but now it seemed that she probably knew it herself. Why did she know it? How old was she at that time? She wasn't even a third-year middle school student. How did she know it? Who taught her? Did the military doctor teach her at that time? If he had taught her with her memory and comprehension, she would have been able to remember it. Suppressing his surprise, he heard Principal Chen laugh and say, "She's smart. She likes to flip through all kinds of books and knows how to use her own hands. She just looks familiar. How can she compare to a nurse who graduated from a professional college? Besides, they also need to learn some simple emergency measures. If they don't know anything, then it'll be troublesome." Xiao Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh. She was indeed eager to learn. As long as she thought it was useful, she would take the initiative to learn. Things like bandaging and inserting needles were basic emergency measures that they had to learn on the battlefield. It was normal that she would insert needles into Uncle Chun. Our nurses also need to learn more. She's not a professional and can insert needles on the first try. You guys need to learn more, the doctor said humorously to the two nurses. Although he was joking, he was also lecturing them. The two nurses nodded and humbly listened to the lecture. Just now, the two of them were indeed a little embarrassed. They had each inserted needles twice without success, but the female soldier from the army succeeded on the first try. They were so familiar with her that they thought she was the accompanying military doctor in the army. Yi Qian, who was wearing the jungle combat training uniform of the field forces, was easily misunderstood by them. After adjusting the speed of the drip, Yi Qian stood up straight and said with a smile, "I was a little impatient. Please forgive me, Professor. This child sure knows how to be polite." The doctor saw that Yi Qian was very polite and mature. He smiled and said, "Then you have to take good care of the old class leader. He can eat some meat now, but should be light. He can't eat spicy food." The military was extremely meticulous when it came to living arrangements. Previously, there were caretakers to take care of him, especially when it came to food. Every day, there would be nutritious meals, and there would be a list of what to eat and what nutrients to add. This was something that Principal Chun, who was used to living a rough life, could not get used to. Last week, after he was allowed to eat some meat and fish, he was determined not to be given any more preferential treatment. He even asked the military and the hospital to withdraw the caregivers and stop giving them such special treatment. The guards asked for instructions from their superiors. Only after obtaining the military's approval did they inform the hospital to withdraw this special treatment according to Principal Chen's wishes. Only then did Principal Chun feel much better. "Uncle Chun, listen carefully. In the future, you have to quit drinking alcohol and spicy food." Although there were no caretakers, Yi Qian could supervise him better. Hearing this, Yi Qian immediately asked the doctor what he could and could not eat. He asked so carefully that Principal Chun could only feel helpless. When the doctor left, he even joked, "Looks like your nemesis is here. Our nurses will have an easier time in the future." The old class leader was very cooperative in other aspects, but he was not cooperative when it came to his daily life. He was afraid that the hospital would give him special treatment. Every time the caretakers delivered food, they would explain it in detail. Sometimes they would even ask the nurses. This caused everyone in the department to collectively tell them that the food was from the cafeteria every day. Chapter 1878. To Principal Chun, the food in the cafeteria was more than enough. He did not need to be served like an empress dowager. To him, the food in the cafeteria was more delicious and appetizing. Abstaining from alcohol and spicy food is not a problem. Just don't arrange for any caregivers. I already feel that it's too troublesome to arrange 3 shifts of guards to watch over me. I feel like I'm going to become a useless person if you arrange for more. Principal Chun, who was drinking millet porridge, said earnestly, You've already caused a lot of trouble for the military. You can't be so meticulous about everything. Little Yi, remember not to make any requests. Uncle Chun, I'm just seriously ill. I'm not crippled. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Don't treat me like a useless person. I don't like to be served like this. Yi Qian knew Principal Chen's temper. He had the same temperament as Uncle General. If the military needed them, they would be duty-bound to join the military. But when they returned to their daily lives, they would have to solve any problems on their own. They would never trouble the military. Uncle Chun was a strong-willed person and was once a world-class sniper. How could he accept a life of being taken care of everywhere? This kind of life might be good for others, but for Uncle Chun, it was denying his ability to continue contributing to the military. This was what Uncle Chun could not accept the most. Hearing this, Yi Qian smiled and said, I'll remember what you said. I won't make any requests to the military. But when you say return to the military, do you mean your second military service? Otherwise, Uncle Chun would not say that he would return to the military directly. Instead, he would say that he would visit the military occasionally. Return to the military directly? Xia Jinyuan, who was putting a steamed bun on Yi Qian's plate, could not help but look over. If you stay in the military all the time, you can. You'll be happier too. According to China's military service law, retired soldiers could not return to the military in principle. However, if the military specially recruited them, they could still return to the military. However, they were not considered veterans. They were only specially recruited. It was like a university inviting an old expert to teach a class. Yes, I'm re-employed as a special recruit, so I can't be considered an official soldier. But when I return to the army, there will be no one at home. If you want to go home, Principal Chen hesitated. He was worried that when Yi Qian returned to the village, the house would be too empty and cold. Uncle Chun, I think it's pretty good. In the future, as my training and studies become more intense, I'm afraid that I won't be able to return to the village often. When I enter the army, it will be even more difficult for me to return. I think it's good that you've been specially hired to return to the army. Yi Qian interrupted him somewhat anxiously. She knew what Principal Chen was thinking, but to put it bluntly, she really didn't have much affection for Shukou village. It was probably because she had been hurt too badly by the rumors and slanders in the village in her previous life, and it was also probably because she had weak feelings for other people other than her family. So much so that even though she had lived 2 lives, she could not bear to part with the village that had raised her. If Uncle Chun was specially hired to stay in the army in the future, that would be perfect. In the future, during the holidays, she could directly return to the army to look for Uncle Chun. She could also train with the soldiers during the holidays. Yi Qian only needed to think about this kind of life for a moment, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. It seems like you really want me to return to the army. All right, as long as you don't have any objections, then I've decided. In the future, I'll stay at the sniper base in the southern province. Shukou village. Yi girl, I'm afraid I won't be returning to the village in the future. Chapter 1879. Principal Chun was not a local resident of Shukou village. Being far away from his hometown, he was used to traveling around the world and was less homesick than others. He had been the principal of Fujian Town Middle School for more than 10 years, and even his house was arranged by the school. If you don't want to go back, then so be it. I'll go wherever you go in the future. Yi Qian spoke so quickly and confidently that Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He coughed lightly and waited for her gaze to fall on him before he said calmly, I heard that the sniper training base in Southern Province is very convenient to get to the airport. If you're free, you can actually come to Beijing for a short stay. My dad and grandparents will be very happy to have you here. I called my dad in the wee hours of the morning and told him that I planned to go back in the afternoon to visit him. Who knew that he would tell me directly that I didn't need to go back alone and that he would be happy to bring you back. Yi Qian, who was chewing on a steamed bun, blushed a little. She stuttered. Who told you to tell the commander-in-chief that I was coming to Beijing? You deserve to be despised. It was a bad idea not to go, but going didn't seem right either. Yi Qian had a headache. She was most afraid of this kind of thing. It's time to pay him a visit. During this period of time, As long as Commander Xia has time, he will take the time to visit me in the hospital. He will send people to take care of things in the hospital. Little Yi, you will go with Major Xia to visit the Commander-in-Chief in the afternoon. Principal Chun was naturally happy to see that the relationship between the parent and the representative was stable. As he spoke, he signaled Xia Jinyuan with his eyes. The major, who was well-liked for his work, immediately said, "Then we'll listen to Uncle Chun. We'll go home together in the afternoon." Yi Qian was so scared that she didn't even chew the steam bun in her mouth and swallowed it. She didn't want to go back to Captain Xia's house now. She didn't want to go at all. Principal Chun glanced at the way she swallowed the steamed bun in fright. Before she could catch her breath, he quickly nodded. "Go earlier. Don't come back too early. I need to catch up on my sleep in the afternoon." Commander-in-Chief Xia liked Yi Wanwan very much. Every time he came back, he couldn't help but talk about her. His words implied that he wanted Yi Wanwan to visit his home. But this girl was thin-skinned. She definitely wouldn't agree if Major Xia invited her to his house. It was only possible if he opened his mouth. "Then I'll call my dad now and tell him. It just so happens that it's Sunday today. If he's free, he usually plays chess and fish with his old comrades. It's easy to arrange the time. All right, then call the Commander-in-Chief. I have something to discuss with Little Yi." Without needing Yi Qian to say anything, Principal Chun made the decision and instructed Major Xia, who had wanted to bring her home for a long time, to quickly make the arrangements so that Yi Qian wouldn't have a chance to recover from a shock. Yi Qian couldn't get a word in edgewise. By the time he caught his breath, everything had already been decided. Seeing Xia Jinyuan get up, she rushed over and tried to grab his arm. Don't, Little Yi, look at this medicine. Isn't it a little too fast? Why do I feel a swelling pain in my arm?" She wanted to stop him, but she had to see if Principal Chun would agree. Yi Qian immediately withdrew his hand and turned off the drip. He asked anxiously, "Other than the swelling pain, do you feel anything else? Does your heart beat faster? Do you feel any pressure when you breathe? Has something similar happened in the past?" Today's medicine was the same as a few days ago. However, with the same medicine, she didn't feel any discomfort at first, but later on, she felt uncomfortable. Similar situations had happened before. Yi Qian was a little nervous. Chapter 1880. Xia Jinyuan had already stood up gracefully and left the ward to call Commander-in-Chief Xia. Principal Chun, who was pretending to be unwell, saw that Xia Jinyuan had already left the ward. He instructed Yi Qian to sit down and said earnestly, "Why are you panicking? Sit down and finish your breakfast." Yi Qian, who knew that Principal Chun had done it on purpose, heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Uncle Chun, I can't stand being scared like that." He did not give up and turned to look outside. He quickly calculated in his mind, "Don't look anymore. It was my idea and my intention." Headmaster Chen's face was full of smiles. Relationships that don't aim for marriage are all hooligans. He had to keep an eye on them. So far, the Commander-in-Chief's son was indeed impeccable. Yi Qian did not have any other long-term plans. He only wanted to bring Yi Qian home. Not bad, not bad. Yi Qian was a dependable and responsible man. Even though Principal Chun had always been satisfied with Xia Jinyuan, he still had to observe him. He was quite satisfied with Yi Qian's performance today. Yi Jian had lost her appetite for breakfast. At this moment, her heart was filled with anxiety. "Uncle Chun, I'm not prepared at all. It's too rash of me to visit you all of a sudden. I was also afraid that I would be rude. You know that I really don't know much about relationships. There are some things that I don't dare to face. What should I do if I were to be rude?" Yi Qian was very anxious and nervous. She did not have her usual calmness. Her little face was so tense that even the expression in her eyes was very unnatural. Seeing this, Principal Chun could not help but sigh softly. They had taught Yi Qian how to be strong, independent, and work hard, but they had not taught her how to deal with complicated relationships. Fortunately, Major Xia saw through Yi Qian's resistance to the outside world and had a deep conversation with him. After that, Yi Qian did not stay in a narrow circle. Major Xia personally led her. In about half a year, Yi Qian was able to get along well with the sergeants in the army. It was the same in school. She was no longer alone and had a few good friends. The little girl in the past had grown up day by day. Now, she was a female soldier who could shoulder responsibilities. In a few years, she would be at the age to talk about marriage. Looking at her fearful and uneasy appearance, Headmaster Chen gently patted her arm and said earnestly, "Girl, don't be too nervous. Don't be afraid of being rude. In Uncle Chen's eyes, you have always been an honest, trustworthy, and well-mannered child. How can you think that you will be rude? Even if you do something wrong, don't you have Major Xia? With him around, what are you afraid of? Or are you saying that you don't want to go because you've never considered that your relationship with Major Xia will last a long time?" No, I just wasn't prepared. She had lived for 2 lifetimes before encountering something like this, so there was always a sense of fear in her heart. She did not have the confidence and was afraid that she would not do a good job. Do you think that if I suddenly go over, Commander-in-Chief Xia will think that I'm not very sensible? The more she spoke, the more nervous she became. Seeing that she was about to twist her fingers into pieces, Principal Chun did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why are you so worried? You're not afraid of anything. Why are you afraid of going to the Commander-in-Chief's house? Besides, this time you're going there to thank the Commander-in-Chief for taking care of me. How can it be rude? If you come and don't go, it will be rude. Chapter 1881. The Commander-in-Chief is also looking forward to you going, which shows how satisfied he is with you. Little girl, although you are still young, and Uncle Chun has never been married before and doesn't know how to get along with marriage, Uncle Chun is here to tell you that marriage is definitely not a matter between you and Major Xia, but an important matter between 2 families. If the Commander-in-Chief's family is satisfied with you, then that is a true marriage. If he is not satisfied, no matter how good Major Xia is to you, Uncle Chun will never agree to let you be with him. Go over today and thank the Commander-in-Chief for taking care of me. Tell him that I, Chun Dongfeng, have nothing else but to train a few more excellent snipers and not let the troops down. With this heart-to-heart talk, Yi Qian suddenly felt a lot less burdened. Meeting the parents was a very cautious thing. Although she knew that Commander-in-Chief Xia was satisfied with her, she was still afraid that her relationship with Du Jiayi would implicate the Commander-in-Chief. After all, Du Jiayi's father was Chief of Staff of the General Staff Department and was not on good terms with the Commander-in-Chief. If Chief of Staff knew about her relationship with Captain Xia and wanted to help his daughter, would he go against the Commander-in-Chief again? Wei Jiyue had said that Chief of Staff Du and his wife, Madame Li, were very protective. Don't feel burdened. Uncle Chun believes that you will do well. If the Commander-in-Chief asks you to stay for dinner, don't refuse, okay? It is not easy for Major Xia to come back to the capital. If you refuse to eat, he will definitely come with you. You want to spend more time with me, but you have to think from Major Xia's point of view. Who doesn't want to spend more time with their family? Especially since both of you are soldiers and you spend very little time at home. What you do is so dangerous. Your family will only be relieved if they see that you are safe. Girl, no matter how nervous you are, you have to go. There were no flowery words or grand principles. Headmaster Chen's words were simple and easy-to-understand principles and principles of how to deal with people. Yi Qian nodded gently. Okay, I know. It was better not to think about it in her heart. She really couldn't just think that she didn't want to go and not think that if she didn't go, Captain Xia would most likely not go home. Didn't he just say that Commander-in-Chief Xia had said, if he goes home alone, then don't come back either? Although he was very nervous, he didn't care anymore. He gritted his teeth and went ahead. Yi Qian gritted his teeth as he made his way to the entrance of the courtyard. The guard checked their IDs and confirmed that their identities were correct. He saluted the 2 people in the car and immediately let them go. When the car window was rolled up, Yi Qian immediately raised his hand to rub his face, trying to loosen his stiff apple muscles. I'm so nervous, so nervous. I'm even more nervous than the first time I used a gun to kill a target. She rubbed her face, pouted her cheeks, tugged at the corner of her clothes, adjusted her hat. She looked extremely nervous. Xia Jinyuan tried hard to hold back his laughter. He was afraid that his laughter would provoke this little ancestor, so he directly opened the car door and rolled on the ground. He didn't even wait for Xia Jinyuan to stop the car before he left. Is there really only the commander-in-chief at home? Was there really no one else? Are there any other leaders? Captain Xia, you have to tell me the truth too. Don't make me confused. Then, before Xia Jinyuan could answer, she said again, if I do anything wrong later, quickly give me a look. I can understand what you mean. If I do something stupid, don't just sit there. You must stand out. Is my bow tie crooked? Is my collar flat? Oh, are my epaulets loose? Chapter 1882. There was no one else who could be this nervous. Without Xia Jinyuan saying anything, Yi Qian, who had been talking to himself, began to tidy up the military academy's winter uniform, afraid that it would be rude. She had spent a long time tidying up the winter uniform in the hospital. Her epaulets, collar, bow tie, and belt were all neatly arranged. Because the clothes had been in her bag all this time and had not been worn before, she had even borrowed an iron from the caregiver to iron them to the point that there were no creases at all. She had already checked them carefully, yet she was still afraid of being rude. It was obvious that she was extremely nervous. After entering the courtyard, Xia Jinyuan slowed down the car. He smiled and looked at her gently. His slender fingers nimbly maneuvered the steering wheel to turn to the left. Everything is fine. There's nothing rude about it. Little fox, you're too nervous. Relax. My dad isn't some evil spirit. Why are you so nervous? Besides, you've already met my dad. It's not like an ugly daughter-in-law meeting her in-laws. My dad was very happy when he heard that you were here. The good news came so suddenly that he wondered if I was deliberately teasing him. He only believed me after confirming it with me. You said you were nervous. Maybe my dad is even more nervous than you are. Yi Qian, who was so nervous that he could not sit still, laughed when he heard this. How can you say that? Why would the commander-in-chief be nervous? After being teased by him, Yi Qian finally felt that he was no longer as nervous as when the car drove into the courtyard. He patted his chest and continued to take deep breaths. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. If you retract your head, you'll be stabbed. Just grit your teeth and you'll get through it. Xia Jinyuan's forehead twitched when he heard that. He was even distracted for driving. My house is not an execution ground. You won't be stabbed. Don't you usually have psychological training? Why isn't it working now? It's two completely different concepts. Yi Qian glared at him and continued to take deep breaths. Those psychological training are either for combat or for captives. How can it compare to this? Why can't we compare? You're so nervous right now. You're even more scared than going into battle with a spear. Little fox, you have to calm down. Why don't you just imagine my father as a heinous bad guy, and you as a spy whose main purpose is to gain the bad guy's trust so that it'll be easier for our army to infiltrate and steal the enemy's intelligence so that we can win the battle. Faced with Yi Qian's nervousness, Major Xia tried to hold back his laughter as he came up with one bad idea after another. Most of them were based on slandering his old man, so that Yi Qian could relax a little. Yi Qian finally understood how Commander-in-Chief Xia and Captain Xia got along. You insult me, I insult you. As long as there was an opportunity, they would roll up their sleeves and fight it out. The first time they met, the Commander-in-Chief had said that he often fought with Captain Xia back then. It seemed like it was true. There was no lie at all. This way of getting along with each other might seem like they didn't have much feelings for each other, but in fact, the relationship between father and son was quite close. They got along like brothers and were on the same level. It was a very relaxed way of getting along with each other. Yi Qian said somewhat enviously, "You have a very strong father-son relationship with the Commander-in-Chief." Faced with the sudden praise, the thick-skinned Major Xia actually felt a little uncomfortable. The old man and I used to fight a lot in the past. We didn't like each other. The father-son relationship you mentioned probably came from fighting. But the children in our courtyard are all similar. Take Han Zheng, for example. He used to scheme with me about whether to steal his father's gun. Let's make them anxious. Chapter 1883. Xia Jinyuan didn't want to talk about his dark history, But when he saw the excitement in Yi Qian's eyes and how she didn't look as nervous as before, Major Xia was still willing to use his dark history to make her happy. A man who was willing to coax you with a dark history that he didn't want to talk about was usually your Mr. Right, because he was willing to share the rest of his life with you, only hoping that you could completely walk into his world. Although I'm a gangster, I can't steal a gun. But since Han Jing mentioned it, I didn't want to dampen his spirits, so I immediately nodded and agreed. Guess what I did after that? You also stole the commander-in-chief's gun? Xia Jinyuan laughed. Silly fox, how can a gun be stolen so easily? The current gun control law is not a modified version. There were strict regulations back then. Although I'm a gangster, I know that if a soldier loses his gun, he will be fired. Although I don't get along with old man Xia, I won't steal his gun. Then what bad things did you do? Yi Qian really liked hearing about it. Hearing about his childhood made her feel like he was making up for her missing childhood. I don't think it's a bad thing. Han Jing gets angry every time I mention it. When I went back, I thought about it and was afraid that Han Jing would really steal the gun, so I ran back to the Han family and told Uncle Han. When Han Jing came back from his calligraphy class, he was greeted with a whip. Han Jing was beaten until he cried out in pain. Yi Qian couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her laughter was as clear as spring water and was filled with the flavor of sunshine. Han Jing must be angry. He couldn't make up his mind and specially came to ask you. It wasn't easy for him to make up his mind, but you betrayed him right after he made up his mind. He was beaten up until he cried out in pain before he even did anything bad. It would be strange if he wasn't angry. After Han Jing was beaten up, he said that it was worth it to be beaten up for doing something bad. He didn't even have time to do anything before he was beaten up. It was a big loss. Speaking of the past, Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but want to laugh. He had done so many horrible things that he couldn't even finish recounting them in 3 days and 3 nights. Uncle Han beat Han Jing up and even brought some fruits over to thank him. When my dad heard that, he felt that Han Jing didn't have the guts to do that. I was probably part of it. When Uncle Han took a step forward, I would be beaten until I cried out in pain. Ever since this incident, I've understood one thing. Before doing something bad and snitching on others, you have to consider whether you're important enough. Although Uncle Han came to thank me, he also exposed my involvement. In the future, if you want to do bad things, you must remember that you can't leave a tail behind. You must not casually snitch on others. You must hide yourself well. You must hide your achievements and reputation. Yi Qian was laughing so hard that tears were welling up in the corners of his eyes. Even though Captain Xia did not have a mother by his side during his childhood, he was still very happy with the love of his family. Captain Xia, you're very lucky, she said sincerely. Trust me, little fox, we will always be happy. Her childhood was filled with darkness. He was willing to use his own childhood to fill her with longing for her childhood life. With Xia Jinyuan's childhood memories, Yi Qian's tense heartstrings finally relaxed. When the car drove into an ancient Shanghai courtyard that was even covered with ivy vines outside the red walls, the smile on Yi Qian's face did not disappear. When the security guard saw the car drive into the garage, he immediately went into the room to report. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had long been prepared for his future daughter-in-law's visit, quickly stood up, straightened his clothes, and personally opened the door to welcome her. At least that guy had some ability. He knew how to coax his wife back. Chapter 1884. The compound arranged by the military for Commander-in-Chief Xia had a large area of vegetation. In front of the old Shanghai-style compound, there was a corridor that looked like a modern sky garden. The corridor was made of red bricks and was not painted. The red bricks and white walls had pots of potted plants on them. Even in the middle of winter, there were small red flowers in the potted plants. Yi Qian took a closer look and realized that they were blooming red plum blossoms. The outer walls were covered with vines. Because it was winter, all the green leaves had withered, leaving only brown vines that looked like spider webs clinging to the walls. Yi Qian shifted her gaze to the second floor. The ivory-white old-style window arches looked freshly painted against the red bricks. They were very clean. One of the windows in one of the rooms was pushed open. The light-colored gauze curtains danced gently in the wind. It made Yi Qian feel as if someone was watching her from above. Yi Jian shuddered, and her heart, which had just relaxed, tensed up again. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a dark green figure pass by behind the pillars in the corridor. Yi Qian puffed out her chest and sucked in her stomach. Her expression was so serious that it was as if she was returning to a government office to report on her work. She even muttered, "Walk faster, walk faster, walk faster. The commander-in-chief is already here. Don't let him wait for too long. Walk faster. Why are you walking so slowly all of a sudden? You can't even walk properly. Little fox, I have to match your pace to walk faster." Xia Jinyuan wanted to laugh again. At the same time, he felt that his bad habits were a little too deep. It was a little too unkind. His girlfriend was so nervous that she was walking properly, but he just wanted to laugh. Cough, no, he couldn't laugh. Laughing would ruin things. It wouldn't be too late to laugh after he brought her in. It was too interesting. He was used to Little Fox's calmness that was beyond her age. He had never seen her embarrassed before. Today was a fresh experience for him. No matter how he looked at it, it was not enough. Xia Jinyuan, who was usually able to walk properly, held Yi Qian's hand and squeezed it slightly. "Come, follow me." Yi Qian was really embarrassed at this moment. She did not expect herself to take a straight step. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was standing on the steps, also wanted to laugh, but he held back and maintained a kind smile. He looked gently at Yi Qian, who was led by his son all the way here. "Xiao Yi, treat this place as your own home. Don't be so nervous. I'm not a man-eating tiger. What are you afraid of? Even if I'm a man-eating tiger, with the abilities of the Special Forces, it's not a problem to get rid of a tiger." This was what Commander-in-Chief Xia said to his future daughter-in-law, who was visiting his house for the first time. His future daughter-in-law, who was originally nervous, almost trembled and fell. "Be careful under your feet. The gravel road is a bit uneven." He held his girlfriend firmly and said softly, "My dad is right. If you're not even afraid of a tiger, my dad has nothing to be afraid of." Yi Qian thought, even 10 tigers are no match for the commander-in-chief. She dared to hit a tiger, but she definitely did not dare to hit the commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief saw that Yi Qian was so nervous that she did not know where to put her hands and feet. The smile on his face became even more benevolent. "Take a seat first. I'll make you some tea. Drink some hot tea to calm your nerves, then relax and chat. I won't trouble you. I'll go. Yi Qian, whose but had just touched the sofa, suddenly jumped up and looked like she was ready to make tea at any time. Commander-in-Chief Xia could not help but tease her. "Do you know where my kitchen is?" Chapter 1885. Where was Commander-in-Chief Xia's kitchen? He really didn't know. Yi Qian stood up and sat back down silently. He had already despised himself 100 times. When Commander-in-Chief Xia went to the tea room to make tea in a good mood, Xia Jinyuan came up to Yi Qian and said with a smile, "Don't worry. You'll know where my kitchen is after you come here a few more times. I'll also tell you where my room is later and invite you in to have a seat." At that moment, there was a little person dancing happily in the major's heart. When he saw Yi Qian's embarrassed state, he couldn't help but love him even more. He was too cute. How could he be so cute? He was so cute that he really wanted to kiss him. Xia Jinyuan glanced at the corridor leading to the tea room from the corner of his eye. He immediately seized the opportunity and kissed Yi Qian's cheek at lightning speed. "Give me a kiss so you can relax." Yi Qian jumped when he was kissed. He covered his cheek with his hand and quickly glanced in the direction where the commander-in-chief had gone. He glared at the man who still dared to be impudent. "You're even more nervous now. You need to stay away from me. Are you sure you want me to sit away? You don't want me to support you?" Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows. There was a deep smile on his elegant face. He pretended to get up and sit on the other side. "Then I'll really go over there. You can have a good chat with the old man while you drink tea." Yi Qian grabbed his arm and pinched it. "Don't you dare." He then asked softly, "Where does the commander-in-chief usually settle his meals?" Family Xia didn't have any servants. There weren't even any servants to cook. There was no sign of a mistress in the house. Although the decor was warm, it was full of masculinity. It's easy to settle. I usually settle it at the military headquarters. Occasionally, I'll come back early and call the guard in advance. The guard will take care of the meals. Sometimes, he would go to the North Sea to rest. Family Xia's old house is near the North Sea, so he would go back to accompany Old Master and Old Madam. Ever since Xia Jinyuan was admitted to the National University of Science and Technology of China, Commander-in-Chief Xia sent the old servant who had been serving him and his father to Old Madam Yang and did not hire another servant. Then you should spend more time with the Commander-in-Chief when you're resting. You should also go back to the old mansion to visit Grandpa and Grandma often. Her voice was so soft that she had to prick up her ears to hear it clearly. Even so, Yi Jian was still worried that Commander-in-Chief Xia would hear her. Xia Jinyuan gently squeezed her hand and said with a faint smile, "You have to go back to visit Grandpa and Grandma. Are you blaming me for not taking you to visit them? Why don't we go to the old house tonight? Take a look at the two elders?" "I didn't mean that." Knowing that he did it on purpose, Yi Qian could only hold it in for the time being. "Don't mention going back to the old mansion later. I can say that I'm here to thank the Commander-in-Chief, but if I visit the two elders, I'll become mute." He knew that she wasn't fully prepared to face his family. So how could he make her feel awkward? Seeing that she was so close, Xia Jinyuan lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers intimately. He rubbed it a few times before looking up and smiling gently. "Okay, I won't scare you anymore. Don't worry. I won't take you back to the old mansion today. You have to be prepared. I have to give you time. But we'll definitely have to go back to the old mansion in the future. You have to be prepared in advance. The earliest is next year. Old Master will be celebrating his 90th birthday next year. If we have time, we have to be there." Chapter 1886. There was still a year to prepare, so Yi Qian felt that he would be fine. He nodded and said, "Okay, if I have time, I will definitely accompany you home." "Really?" Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows. There was a deeper meaning in his smile. Yi Qian didn't seem to realize that he had just agreed to something. He nodded and said, "Of course, I always keep my word." "Okay, I will remember." Major Xia smiled like a cat that had stolen a fish. No matter how you looked at it, there was a deeper meaning behind his smile. Yi Qian didn't know about Family Xia's rules. If a man with a Family Xia brought his girlfriend home to attend the birthday banquet, it meant that their relationship was stable enough that they could get married and have children at any time. Yi Qian, who didn't know, agreed to Major Xia's proposal. He believed that he was the wife of Family Xia and Major Xia's wife. Major Xia was naturally happy that their relationship had changed so drastically. When the Commander-in-Chief came out with the tea, he saw the two of them sitting side by side on the two-seater sofa, their heads touching as they chatted. He felt very comfortable. In his life, he had lived up to the heavens, the earth, the country, and the people. But he had let down his only son. He owed him too much, so he didn't have the confidence to educate him. He had to straighten his neck and roar in order to feel a little more confident. He felt more at ease when he saw the young couple kissing each other. They seemed to be in a good relationship. Yi Qian heard footsteps behind him. He was about 2 fists away from Xia Jinyuan. He immediately stood up and greeted him. "Commander-in-Chief, I can do it myself." "Xiao Yi, don't be so formal. We don't need to be formal at home. You can call me uncle. I will be happier when I hear that." Commander-in-Chief Xia wasn't as rigid as he was at work. He was witty and humorous. However, he had been in the military for many years and held a high position. Even when he smiled, he still had a dignified aura about him. Commander-in-Chief Xia handed the steaming teacup to Yi Qian, who blushed when he heard his words. He added, "You're making me even more nervous." Hearing this, Yi Qian did not know how to respond without being rude. Come. Sit. Old Six, let little Yi sit down." Director Xia did not want his future daughter-in-law to be afraid of him. Although he was wearing a military uniform, he deliberately restrained his military might. He was afraid that she would be too nervous and not dare to come again after her first visit. "Have a seat. Don't stand on ceremony." In front of the commander-in-chief, Xia Jinyuan hid his bad habits very well. He did not do anything that would make Yi Qian feel even more unnatural. Even the way he spoke was much more normal. The tea was very hot. Yi Qian took a small sip and was about to put the teacup on the coffee table when a pair of slender hands reached over and took the teacup for her. Be careful not to burn yourself. After taking the teacup, Xia Jinyuan also took a sip from her cup before putting the teacup on the coffee table. Yi Jian, who was blushing, kept receiving the gaze of Commander-in-Chief Xia. She straightened her back and sat upright, not daring to relax at all. Go home and relax. Although this is your first time home, this will be your home in the future. It will make you relax and feel happy. Not many people could completely relax in front of him. Commander-in-Chief Xia smiled and looked at the nervous but magnanimous girl. He kindly asked about Principal Chun. He's about to be discharged. He wanted to be discharged for a long time. He even wanted to run out of the hospital and ask for permission later. In the end, he didn't succeed and was stopped by the guards. I had to reprimand him a few times before he calmed down. It's only a few days until he can be discharged. I don't know if he can stay here for the next few days. Chapter 1887. After taking a few sips of hot tea, Yi Qian gradually relaxed his stiff body and said politely, Commander-in-Chief, Uncle Chin's illness has caused you to worry. Thank you very much. If it weren't for your timely arrangements, Uncle Chun might not have been able to pull through. I don't deserve your thanks. This is what the military should do. He fell in a position to train talents for the army, so it's only right for the military to do its best to save him. Fortunately, he survived the scare without any mishap. Otherwise, it would be the biggest regret of the military. Xia Jinyuan became the guest. He stared at the girl he admired with a soft gaze. He watched her go from nervousness to calmness, and then back to calmness. Her thin and sexy lips were always slightly raised. His girl took this step for him, which meant that she approved of him and was willing to treat his home as her own. In the future, his home would be her home. It would be the home for both of them. We took his situation into consideration and combined it with the actual situation. In the end, we arranged for him to go to the sniper training base in the southern province. He will be specially recruited as a veteran and will enjoy the benefits of being in the army. Of course, his personal information will still be classified. His file will not be transferred to the southern province military region, and you will be able to be at ease. You won't have to worry about your family. You can focus on completing your studies without any burden. Even the guards were standing outside the living room. There was no one else in the living room. Yi Qian, who had relaxed, calmed down and faced the various questions from the commander-in-chief. After talking about Principal Chun, Commander-in-Chief Xia asked about Yi Qian's studies. You won't be staying in Beijing for long this time, right? I remember that the midterm exams for the National University of Science and Technology are coming up. How's your revision going? Did you miss your studies because of training? Commander-in-Chief Xia's intention for Yi Qian to come here this time was to introduce himself to Yi Qian. He didn't have any intention of inspecting Yi Qian. Therefore, he only asked about Yi Qian's current situation. Yi Qian smiled and answered seriously, My revision is going well. During training, Captain Xia tutored me. I've already finished reviewing the important content. We'll rush back to school tomorrow morning and start the exam the day after tomorrow. She had to leave school on December 12th to start a 45-day training. After that, there were only 3 days left before the school's midterm exams. Calculating the time, it would be the day after tomorrow. Therefore, she had to return to school tomorrow morning. Military academies are different from high schools. Academic results are ranked second, while comprehensive physical fitness results are ranked first. Although you have 45 days to train outside, I believe that with your ability, you can do both at the same time and achieve good results in both your specialization and comprehensive physical fitness. Commander-in-Chief Xia couldn't help but nod when he found out that Xia Jinyuan took time out to tutor Yi Qian every day. It seemed that his little rascal knew how to coax his wife better than he had imagined. Starting from his studies, Yi Qian was able to gradually relax. Commander-in-Chief Xia was like an elder in the family as he made suggestions. At the same time, he was also concerned if Yi Qian had any difficulties. If there were any, he should mention it, and so on. More than an hour passed by just like that. Yi Qian arrived at the compound at 3 o'clock. In the blink of an eye, it was already past 4 o'clock. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who didn't realize that time had passed by quickly, was still teaching Yi Qian. You have a lot of room for improvement. In the future, you have to be as steady and solid as you are now. You don't have to worry about Principal Chun. I had a small meeting with the southern province. He'll be specially hired to return to the army and train a group of snipers like you. Chapter 1888. You and Sixth Brother don't have to worry about family matters. Just take care of your own affairs and don't let down the country's expectations of you. He then said to Xia Jinyuan, you also have to restrain yourself better. As a man, not only do you have to shoulder the responsibility of your military uniform, but you also have to shoulder the responsibility of your family. Treat Xiao Yi well, who dare to go through hardships with you. Don't mess around. She was a very nice girl who didn't deliberately curry favor with him just because he was the commander-in-chief. Although she was very nervous, it was obvious that her nervousness stemmed from the importance of family Xia. She was afraid that she would be rude. She had a down-to-earth temperament, a sincere way of dealing with people, and her talent. Every family would like such a female soldier. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't want such a good girl to fall into his family. Xia Jinyuan, who was once again reminded, curled his lips and sighed to Yi Qian. See, I'm really not Commander-in-Chief Xia's biological daughter. I should be the son-in-law who moved in with his family, and you should be the biological daughter. If I had a daughter like Yi Qian, I definitely wouldn't let her marry you. The commander-in-chief smiled slightly and attacked his son mercilessly. It's all thanks to our ancestors that you were able to find Xiao Yi now. Faced with the attack from his biological father, Xia Jinyuan, who had always been mentally strong, immediately agreed happily. Yes, you're right. In the future, I will definitely take good care of your biological daughter and won't let her suffer the slightest grievance. You have to do what you say. Don't try to make empty promises. Take Xiao Yi around and familiarize her with the environment. I'll take care of some small matters. Seeing the guards coming over, Commander-in-Chief Xia knew that he had something to take care of, so he got up and prepared to go back to the study. Xia Jinyuan looked at the time. It was almost time to prepare dinner. He pulled Yi Qian's hand and stood up together. Yi Qian was caught off guard and was startled by his sudden handshake. Why are you pulling my hand in front of the commander-in-chief? She naturally wanted to pull her hand back, but Xia Jinyuan did not let go. Instead, he interlocked his fingers with hers, making it impossible for her to break free. The major's expression did not change as she said, Dad, it's better to let Uncle Blessing and Aunt Blessing come back in the future. With them around, Yi Qian and I can still eat hot food when we come back. I have to think about it. I won't be having dinner at home tonight. I've booked a table outside. We'll go to the hospital together. You guys go ahead. I'll be quick. Commander-in-Chief Xia looked at Yi Qian with a gentle gaze as if he didn't notice their little actions. Just take a look around. You don't need Sixth Brother when you come back in the future. You can go home on your own. In the morning, when Commander-in-Chief Xia heard that Yi Qian was coming to visit, he planned to invite Uncle Blessing and Aunt Blessing back to make dinner. The family of three could even have a drink together. However, Xia Jinyuan said not to alert the old mansion for the time being, in case the whole family was alarmed and came running to the house. He was afraid that Yi Qian would be so scared that he wouldn't dare to visit again. Now he's asking Uncle Blessing and Aunt Blessing to come back. Did something happen while he was making tea? Okay, you go ahead. Yi Qian, whose hand was held and could not break free, bowed slightly. Her ears were slightly hot as she watched the commander-in-chief stride away and go to the study. My dad will like to see the two of us holding hands. Struggling so hard. Aren't you afraid of dislocating your wrist? Their fingers were intertwined. Xia Jinyuan looked at her red ears and bent down to get closer to her. Why are you still so shy? It's just holding hands. Chapter 1889. There's nothing to be shy about holding hands with, but in front of the commander-in-chief. Why? Shouldn't you be more reserved? Being around him was really a good way to train one's psychological tolerance. Yi Qian looked at their interlocked fingers and decided there was no need to shake them off. However, he still had to make things clear. I was shocked by you. I'm not used to holding hands in front of elders. She wasn't angry, but she was indeed not used to it. Xia Jinyuan kissed the back of her hand. Everything requires a process of getting used to it. I'll only hold hands and won't do anything else. How about that? He was so shy that he needed to practice. Are you sure? Yi Qian didn't believe him. He had already experienced Xia Jinyuan's insatiable nature. Xia Jinyuan immediately changed the topic. Let's go. I'll take you around. The old man is right. In the future, when I'm not at home, you can go home alone. Before they left, Yi Qian suddenly heard the sound of something slamming on the floor upstairs. Xia Jinyuan looked up. The sound didn't come from the study, but from the bedroom. Xia Jinyuan was a little worried. He frowned and said softly, "Wait a minute. I'll go ask the guard." Yi Qian, who was nervous again, quickly nodded and gestured for him to go take a look. He was angry. Something big must have happened. He thought he would have to wait for a long time. Who knew that the man who left in less than 3 minutes would return to the living room? This was bad. Even Xia Jinyuan, who had been smiling the whole time, looked a little gloomy. Yi Qian became more and more uneasy, but he knew it wasn't because of her. When Yi Qian walked out, he realized why his face was gloomy. It turned out that Commander-in-Chief Xia's ex-wife, Madame Xiao, came to the villa complex a few days ago, but was rejected. This afternoon, she went directly to the family Xia's old mansion to disturb Madame Xiao's peace. Every time she comes back, there are a lot of things to do. She makes everyone unhappy, and then she leaves without taking any responsibility, just like before. After Xia Jinyuan said coldly, he looked calm again. Let's not talk about her. Let's go. I'll take you to the place where I used to go when I was young. One is the sports field, where the punishment is the most severe. The other is the banyan forest, where a group of people play a game of good guy and bad guy. He didn't mention Madame Xiao again, and Yi Qian didn't ask about it either. She smiled and asked a few more questions as she listened to his childhood. Soon, the man beside her was the handsome, smiling, and elegant young master again. Most of the senior officials and heads of state in Jing City lived in the compound. Most of them were senior generals in the army. Xia Jinyuan didn't take her too far. Because it was a Sunday, they met a few people who knew Xia Jinyuan. Fortunately, the two of them did not hold hands and only chatted as they walked. When they met someone they knew, Xia Jinyuan said that she was his junior from school and came to Beijing for an internship. He did not directly introduce Yi Qian as his girlfriend. Military school students should abide by the rules. They could be more presumptuous at home, but when they were outside, Xia Jinyuan was very careful about Yi Qian's reputation. He didn't want her to be criticized again. I'm not free tonight. My junior brothers and sisters from school are coming over, so I have to be a good host. Let's have a drink. I'll definitely look for you when I come back next time. Xia Jinyuan smiled and declined the invitation. After chatting with them for a while, he took Yi Qian back home. The people who asked him out for a drink were all of the same age. Although they weren't as close as Han Jing, they got along well. They didn't really grow up in the villa complex. Some of them only moved to the villa complex when they were in their teens with their parents. Although they know each other, they aren't very close. Chapter 1890. There aren't many people who are very close to me. Han Jing, whom you've met before, is one of them. There are a few others who are involved in satellites, research, business, and even overseas. I'll introduce them to you when we return to Beijing. As they grew up, it was inevitable that they would separate from each other. Although they were separated, their bond for doing bad things together did not diminish. Instead, it deepened. They understood each other, and they liked each other. Naturally, they could be brothers for life. Commander-in-Chief Xia was on the phone with the housekeeper of the old mansion. You don't have to let her in next time. I'll have a good chat with her. I'll come back to visit old madam in a few days. He spoke for 3 to 5 minutes before hanging up. After changing into casual clothes, he asked the guard to call back the two who had gone out for a walk. After walking for a while, the two of them pushed the door open and entered without waiting for the guard to come out. They saw the commander-in-chief, who had changed into casual clothes and was wearing a dark blue coat, standing in the living room. When he saw the two of them enter, he smiled and said, "I was just about to ask the guard to look for you when you came back." Although he was smiling, Yichien could tell that he did not look too good. He must have been angry just now. There was still anger between his eyebrows. The commander-in-chief was not wearing a military uniform. Even if he was wearing casual clothes, his military aura could not be concealed. In addition, there was still anger between his eyebrows. His aura was so strong that it made people feel pressured. Yichien secretly glanced at the man beside him. Seeing his natural expression, he felt a little relieved. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was originally angry, smiled and said, "Laolu, go get the car. We won't bring the guard today. It's just the three of us going out as a family." Xia Jinyuan, who acted as if he did not notice anything, sized him up and said, "You're already a few decades old. Don't think that you're very young. You still have to pay attention to what you should. It's windy outside today. You'd better get a scarf." He asked the guard to go back to the room and get a scarf. In the past, the father and son often fought. When the father grew old and the son grew up, although they argued with each other, they were still filial. Yichien liked a warm family. Looking at the scene in front of him, the smile in his eyes was like a blooming flower, and his heart was full of joy. As for the unhappiness just now, it was like a stone thrown into a pond, and after the ripples, it was calm. He's getting more and more involved. Although the commander-in-chief complained, the smile in his eyes could not lie. He looked at his son, who was half a head taller than him, and then looked at the girl standing behind him with a smile on her face. He sighed softly and said, "This family finally looks like a family." It wasn't good to lose a mistress. It was too cold. Xia Jinyuan took the scarf from the guard and wrapped it around his father's neck. It's always looked like a home. I don't think there's anything different about it. In the future, when you have Yichien, you will also have grandchildren. Your home will be livelier and livelier every day. Yichien, who was standing behind her, twitched his mouth. The moment he saw the birth date, he was already thinking about having a child. Commander-in-Chief Xia loved to hear this. He was so happy that he patted Xia Jinyuan on the shoulder and said, "Good luck. I'll be waiting for your good news." His ex-wife, Madame Xiao, was a topic that could not be brought up. Forget it, it was better not to mention it. There was no need to dampen his spirits. Both father and son had similarities. Yichien finally understood what the similarities between the father and son in front of him were. They were both people who always thought one step ahead of others. Chapter 1891. By the time they left, it was already 5:30 p.m. Xia Jinyuan and Yichien, who had not changed into their casual clothes, walked out together with the commander-in-chief in their neat military uniforms. Their laughter was light, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. The restaurant was not in a crowded area, but in the depths of Hutong Alley near Huangshen. They drove all the way to the entrance of Courtyard House. This used to be the residence of a high-ranking official, but now it was a private restaurant where ordinary people could not book a table even if they wanted to. There were 2 pairs of doors in front of Rushi Townhouse, and there were already customers coming and going. In the twilight, it was obvious that they were all wealthy and respectable guests. The private room was antique, and the interior design was very typical of the Ming and Qing dynasties. Even the big chairs were made of high-quality yellow pearwood. There were small ornaments like jade bottles in the baguette. Although they were handicrafts, they were still expensive. Xia Jinyuan carefully pulled out a chair for Yi Jian and took over Commander-in-Chief Xia's coat. He didn't let the waiter help him hang it up himself. It's a private restaurant opened by an acquaintance. The chefs hired are all top chefs, and every one of them has their own specialty. We just came back from training and ordered a few light dishes. Next time, I'll bring you here to try the heavy dishes. Xia Jinyuan opened the menu. There was no greasy smell, and the fragrance of red sandalwood greeted him. Yichien realized that the menu was made of red sandalwood and made of paper. It did not look like a menu, but more like a piece of art. While waiting for the dishes to be served, the three of them chatted about some interesting things in life. They did not mention anything about the army, and they were very alert at all times. When the dishes were served, Commander-in-Chief Xia would occasionally signal Xia Jinyuan to put food in Yi Qian's bowl. Occasionally, he would say humorously, "Young people should have the courage of young people." He would also say, "When we were young, but when we were old, those were just memories. Little Yi, sometimes you should ask him to do more work. You should train him first." Every time Commander-in-Chief Xia said something like this, Yi Qian humbly listened to his advice. Xia Jinyuan said, "Your experience is purely misleading. Teach us less, and we will figure it out ourselves. Or perhaps you're trying to take revenge, aren't you? Why do you keep remembering what I did to you when I was young and ignorant? As a person, you have to look forward." Whenever the father and son met, Yi Qian would choose to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. He would just watch with a smile and not say anything. When Commander-in-Chief Xia saw that Yi Qian had stopped talking, he immediately turned his head and said, "Xiao Yi, do you know why I'm thinking about you?" He really didn't know. Yi Qian poured a cup of hot tea and asked with a gentle smile, "I really don't know." He did not expect the Commander-in-Chief to be so calm and private. She did not feel nervous at all. "Don't you remember? The old man couldn't win against the young man. I'll never forget this for the rest of my life." Commander-in-Chief Xia laughed heartily. This should be considered a dark history. He caused trouble outside, and I want to throw him directly into the juvenile detention center to discipline him. He was very capable, so he proposed to make a bet with me. Yi Qian accidentally heard a part of Commander-in-Chief Xia's dark history. This was the dark history of the top leader of the army, and she heard it without any preparation. The situation was similar to the last time when Xia Jinyuan mentioned Madame Xiao. She heard the whole story without any preparation. "I had 10 bullets, and he had 10 bullets too. We made a bet that whoever could shoot perfectly would lose. The loser would have to run 3 kilometers around the field. At that time, I thought that there was no way I could lose. Even if I couldn't shoot perfectly, I still could." Chapter 1892. Later on, I did indeed score 9 out of 10. Compared to a kid who had never seriously practiced shooting, I thought that I would definitely win. What I didn't expect was that he would pick up the gun and shoot straight down. It was a perfect score. When Xia Jinyuan was 12 years old, the fights between father and son became technical. They would either do push-ups or hang on the horizontal bar. He always thought that the reason why he was so fit was all because of the fights he had with his father when he was young. I won and he lost. The most hateful thing was that he still wanted to cheat. I gave up and cried at the shooting range. My father was afraid of losing face, so he had to agree. He was the one who started the bet, and he set the rules. In the end, he still cheated. Don't you think that makes me angry? Xia Jinyuan also remembered this incident. Although it was still fresh, it was still in the past. From the age of 14 to 26, a full 12 years had passed. I was the first to admit defeat to my son. At that time, I was the first to do so. No matter how I think about it, it's still embarrassing. In the end, I had to agree to his ridiculous demands. It's even more infuriating. After he finished talking about his dark history, Commander-in-Chief Xia used tea as wine and raised his glass to Xia Jinyuan. "Don't be too proud. I'll wait for a grandson who is even more shameless than you to come and teach you a lesson." Yi Qian, who always trembled in fear when she heard about Xia Jinyuan's dark history, silently picked up her food. Her scalp tingled just thinking about a grandson who is even more shameless than Captain Xia. Don't worry. With a powerful father here, he won't have that chance. Also, if I can't win, there's still his mother. 1 against 2, he's definitely going to lose. Commander-in-Chief Xia finished his tea in one gulp. He didn't want to talk to Major Xia anymore. What a killjoy. "Come, Xiao Yi, drink a cup of tea in place of wine with your uncle as a farewell. I still have a meeting tomorrow, so I won't be sending you to the airport." After changing out of his military uniform and into casual clothes, Commander Xia who had returned to his normal life, was no longer the commander-in-chief who was respected by the generals of the three armies. Instead, he was a kind and humorous elder. One could feel his care and concern in every word he said. Captain Xia's home was a very warm home, and it was also the home she yearned for. Dinner ended at 8 o'clock in the evening. Xia Jinyuan took his wallet and went out to settle the bill. Commander-in-Chief Xia reminded Yi Qian, sincerity, steadfastness, trustworthiness, and responsibility are the principles of being a man. As a soldier, you must not only fulfill these four principles, but you also need to know how to be tolerant. Xiao Yi, be more tolerant so that your life won't be too bad. But if someone bullies you and you don't fight back, that's not tolerance, but weakness. Remember what I said. As long as you're right, I'll be there when something happens. You don't have to be afraid of anything, understand? For some reason, Yi Qian sensed a deeper meaning behind his words. He said uncertainly, "Do you know that I had a little conflict with Chief of Staff Du's daughter? Why? Are you afraid that I'll find out? Or are you afraid that I'll scold you?" Commander-in-Chief Xia couldn't help but shake his head and laugh at his panicked expression. "You have a point. Even if I know, what's there to be worried about? Sixth brother should have told you about the matter between me and Chief of Staff. You had a conflict with his daughter. It happened. It's no big deal. If she dares to do anything, I'll naturally wait for her." "You!" Suddenly, an exasperated middle-aged woman's voice came from the private room. "Xia Xinhui, are you in there?" Commander-in-Chief Xia, who hadn't finished speaking, heard this, and the smile on his face disappeared. He instantly revealed a majestic aura that no one could look directly at. Chapter 1893. Yi Qian suddenly felt that something was amiss. Since she dared to call out the commander-in-chief's name so rudely, it was obvious that she did not come with good intentions. "Take a seat. I'm going out for a while." The commander-in-chief stood up with a gloomy face. Just as he reached the door, he said, "I'll tell you about the old family matters later." This was an explanation to Yi Qian. He quickly stood up and said, "Do you want to invite her in to talk? Okay, you can go back with old Six later. I won't be going to the hospital. Say hello to Principal Chun for me." Commander-in-Chief Xia nodded slightly. The moment he opened the door and walked out, Yi Qian saw how dignified the commander-in-chief was. The military's prestige could not be violated at all. Yi Qian, who slowly sat down, felt a little restless. The commander-in-chief was a high-ranking military officer, yet the person who came was shouting and yelling without any regard for the commander-in-chief's dignity. She even said that it was an old family matter. Could it be? Could it be? Could it be? When she thought of Yi Qian on someone, she could not sit still for a moment. Madame Xiao, the commander-in-chief's ex-wife. She suddenly wondered if it was her. If it was Madame Xiao, it would be inappropriate for her to wait for Commander-in-Chief Xia to return to the private room before leaving. No, she could not stay. She had to leave immediately. She could not meet the commander-in-chief's private matters. A cold and deep voice came from outside. It was Commander-in-Chief Xia's voice. "Xiao Shuman, you're getting worse and worse." He did not hide his anger, and it was like a sudden clap of thunder. Yi Qian, who could no longer sit still, stood up. She had to leave. The door was pushed open again. The elegant and handsome Xia Jinyuan walked over with a gloomy expression. "Little fox, you can go back first. I need to help my father with something." Xia Jinyuan was in a bad mood. He didn't pay attention when he was paying the bill. He bumped into the person he didn't want to see the most. There was no trace of the smile on his handsome face. Only coldness could be seen on his face. "All right, don't lose your composure and don't make a ruckus outside. If you have anything to say it behind closed doors. Don't let others see you as a joke." Yi Qian didn't say it out loud, but Xia Jinyuan knew what she wanted to say. Xia Jinyuan nodded. "Don't worry, I won't give her a chance to make a scene. Let's go. I don't want you to get angry too." His biological mother, Madame Xiao, was definitely a weirdo. More than once, he had ridiculed Commander-in-Chief Xia for finding such a so-called talented woman back then. What talented woman? She was clearly a dull woman. He had a belly full of firewood, but none of it was real. Even if he chopped it up and burned it, it wouldn't make a fire. Madame Zhao's name was Shu Man. She was in her early 50s this year, 5 years younger than Commander-in-Chief Xia. She took good care of herself. From the back, it was easy to believe that she was in her early 30s. From the front, she looked like she was in her 40s. She had delicate eyebrows, cherry red lips, and a noble and elegant temperament. Yi Qian only took a glance at her before hurriedly leaving. Although she was Captain Xia's girlfriend, this was not an ordinary family matter. It was better for her not to know or hear about it. Xia Xinhui, I'm a Yuan's mother. How can you not allow me to see him? As a soldier, how can you be so overbearing? As he walked over, Yi Qian heard her complain. It was as if she had suffered 1,000 grievances. It was very moving. Then, another lady said softly, Old Xia, why haven't you changed your temper after so many years? You have to understand that Shu Man misses her son very much. No matter what, you can't stop a Yuan from seeing his biological mother. Do some calculations. How many times has Shu Man seen a Yuan since she divorced you? I'm afraid that a Yuan doesn't even know who his biological mother is. Yi Qian couldn't listen to it anymore. He suddenly stopped and said to Xia Jinyuan, Captain Xia, I'll go back to the car myself. Go and talk to this lady. Don't think that they're in the right. Chapter 1894. Yi Qian was also a protective person. She did not dislike Madame Zhao's words. After all, they were husband and wife. Even if they were divorced, their relationship was not something outsiders could casually comment on. When it came to matters between husband and wife, both sides had their own say. Since they couldn't live together anymore, it was better for them to get a quick divorce so that they wouldn't drag it out and become enemies. Even their children would be implicated. The reason why she avoided the matter between Commander-in-Chief Xia and Madame Zhao was because she felt that it was enough for the two of them to solve their problems. There was no need for others to interfere. However, this madame's advice was interesting. Her words were pleasant to hear, but the meaning behind her words, she was clearly trying to drive a wedge between them. It was said that a good man did not fight with a woman. With Commander-in-Chief Xia's current status, it was even more impossible for him to fight with her. That madame had already convicted the Commander-in-Chief. Wasn't she just bullying the Commander-in-Chief because he was a man and his status made it inconvenient for him to argue with her? It was a pity that her current status was not very convenient. Otherwise, she would definitely argue with this madam. She could not go forward to argue, but Captain Xia could. As a son, he did not need to worry about the fact that he was facing two women. He only needed to remember that he was his son and stand up for his father. I think this madam did not come with good intentions. Captain Xia, you should go and argue for the Commander-in-Chief. Solve your own family's problems behind closed doors. There is no need for those unrelated people to get involved. She was afraid that Xia Jinyuan did not understand what she meant. Yi Qian, just make it clear. The Commander-in-Chief cannot argue with her, but you can. Yi Qian said softly and even pushed the man beside her. Go quickly. Don't let the Commander-in-Chief be at a loss for words. If my father knew that his daughter-in-law was so protective of him, he would be happy again. Their nervous expressions were really cute. Their faces were tense, and they were worried that the old man would be taken advantage of. Xia Jinyuan directly held her face and kissed her forehead. He chuckled and said, The old man will not be taken advantage of so easily. There are other reasons why he is not in a hurry to go in. Let's go. I'll send you back to the car first. Yi Qian was worried. He wanted to insist on going back alone, but then he remembered that Xia Jinyuan had always insisted, so he nodded and quickened his pace as he walked out. Although he was angry, it wasn't the kind of anger that couldn't be restrained. Perhaps he was too nervous. With Captain Xia's methods, he would not let himself and the Commander-in-Chief suffer. Yi Qian knew Xia Jinyuan very well. He had never been at a disadvantage in front of Madame Zhao. When he returned, he saw that Chief of Staff Du was also standing outside, basking in the limelight. His old man stood with his back straight and his hands behind his back. His cold and arrogant aura made Chief of Staff Du seem shorter. Old Xia, you're being silly. Shu Man is your son's mother. As a father, can you stop her? Sometimes it's better to give in. Don't always bring your work style home. It's too boring to make the house like an office. They really won't make you lose face if you let them. Schumann is not an outsider. It's reasonable for you to let them win, right? Hello, Chief of Staff Du in the light. Xia Jinyuan strode over and greeted them elegantly and politely. Good evening, madams. When Chief of Staff Du, who was also dressed in casual clothes, heard the rather imposing voice of the young man behind him, he could not help but turn around. He then saw a tall and handsome young man who was obviously a soldier walking towards him. Chapter 1895. He sized him up and laughed. Oh, it's Xiao Xia. I haven't seen you for a few years. Ha ha ha. You've changed so much that I almost couldn't recognize you. You haven't changed at all. You're still as elegant as ever. Xia Jinyuan walked over and extended his hand. He wasn't wearing a military uniform, and it was a private meeting, so there was no need for a military salute. They could just shake hands. The moment the young and strong hand reached out, Chief of Staff Du's eyes darkened slightly. He smiled and said, No, I'm old. I'm 5 years older than your father, and I'm already in my 60s. If I continue to change, I'll become an old man. Chief of Staff Du was 64 years old. He got married early, and his eldest son, Du Kaiwei, was nearly 8 years older than Xia Jinyuan. Commander-in-Chief Xia frowned when he saw him coming over. Didn't he ask him to accompany Xiao Yi back to the hospital? Why did he come back? He glanced at his ex-wife, who was opposing him, and his frown deepened. She used to leave in a carefree manner, but now that she was old and envious of others who had children and grandchildren, she came back to look for Six's brother. Xiao Schumann, you've really been naive for a lifetime. Mrs. Xiao, who had been naive for a lifetime, hadn't seen her biological son for many years. At that time, she was so excited that tears were glistening in her eyes. Looking at her biological son, who had grown so tall in the blink of an eye that she had to raise her head to see his appearance clearly, Mrs. Zhao's mouth trembled slightly. Yuan, don't you recognize me? Although you didn't raise me, you still gave birth to me. How can I not recognize you? In the dim light, Xia Jinyuan, who had just finished exchanging greetings with Chief of Staff Du, lowered his eyes slightly and looked at Mrs. Xiao, who had been searching for herself. He smiled faintly and said, Don't think too much. Although he spoke politely with a smile on his face, there was an invisible wall of alienation that made Mrs. Xiao unable to get close to him. This discovery made Mrs. Xiao tremble slightly, and at the same time, tears burst out of her eyes. Yuan, do you hate Mom? Before she could finish her words, Xia Jinyuan had already looked away. Madame Xiao had no choice but to swallow her words and secretly wipe away her tears. The slender major stood in front of everyone. His innate noble temperament made him stand out even in front of the two senior generals in the army. It's such a cold day. Dad, why don't you and Chief of Staff Do go back to the box and talk about our family matters? Mrs. Li, you should come as well. You've always cared about my family. With you around, Mrs. Xiao will feel more at ease. Before Chief of Staff Du could understand the meaning of his words, Mrs. Li's expression had turned cold. She said lightly, Schumann, your son is blaming me for being nosy. Yes, I'm just an outsider. How can I intervene in the family affairs of Commander-in-Chief Xia? I'm meddling in other people's business. She's blaming me. It has nothing to do with you. Madame Xiao raised her hand and gently wiped away the tears that flowed out. She said to Madame Li, I'll chat with the father and son. I won't eat with you, and old Du I'll thank you when I have time. Madame Li first looked at her husband, who shook his head slightly. She sighed and held Madame Zhao's well-maintained hand. You don't have to be so polite with me. I'm really worried about old Xia's temper. Let me and old Du accompany you. If anything happens, you still have us. I won't trouble you, and old Du Chenglan, you go eat first. I'll talk to old Xia. Madame Xiao was not moved. She refused Madame Li's company and said to Chief of Staff Du, Old Du, I'll leave you. Chapter 1896. Since she had already said so, what else could Chief of Staff Du say? He could only say, Okay, I'll eat with Chenglan first. It won't be too late for you to come over if you're early." He then said to Commander-in-Chief Xia, "Old Xia, you two have a good chat. It's not a big deal. Since little Xia is also here, the family of three can sit down and have a good chat. There's nothing that can't be solved. We have to be meticulous in our work, but we can't do that to our family. We have to give in. We can't have a dictatorship." He had said a lot, but the main point was the last sentence. We can't have a dictatorship. Xia Jinyuan was neither servile nor overbearing. He smiled elegantly and said, "Thank you for your reminder. Chief of Staff do in fact, whether it's at home or outside, we can't be a dictatorship or be special." Chief of Staff didn't know if there was a hidden meaning in his words, but he could only smile and leave with his wife. Mrs. Xiao, who had wiped her tears, saw that there were no outsiders present and said, "Where's the private room? We haven't sat down for a long time. Ah Yuan, you should say a few words to your mother. It won't take up too much of your time." It just so happens that I also have something to say to Mrs. Xiao. "Dad, please go back to the private room and have a seat. I'll ask the waiter to make a pot of tea." Xia Jinyuan was not in the mood to talk about their mother-son relationship. He said lightly and went to order the tea. When the tea was served, the three of them, who hadn't sat together for many years, sat in a triangle with a large distance between them. Mrs. Xiao looked at her son, who was unwilling to sit with her, and didn't even look at her. She only felt bitterness in her mouth. She then looked at her ex-husband, who was sitting opposite her. Although he was old, he had more aura than when he was young. He had stayed in the army all this time and was now a commander-in-chief. She didn't dare to look at him more than a few times. Old, they were all old. Thinking back to the absurdity of their youth, they only felt that it was a dream. Every mistake was a mistake, and they didn't even have a chance to correct it. She didn't speak. Commander-in-Chief Xia was also calm. He sipped the freshly brewed hot tea and let his ex-wife look at him. Old Six often said that he had bad taste when he was young and found a woman who couldn't stand the pressure. In fact, he had good taste when he was young. When she was young, Ms. Xiao was a famous talented woman. Although her family background was not as good as family Xia's, it was still a scholarly family in the South. Therefore, she had a scholarly temperament that ordinary women did not have. She had beautiful facial features and fair skin. She was proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. At the end of the 50s, such a woman was usually the target of a boy's crush. He was no exception. Among a group of gray students, he saw his ex-wife at first glance. She was talented, beautiful, gentle, and could speak fluent French and English. In that era, ex-wives were quite popular. He had good taste. However, he had forgotten that the two of them were not suitable to start a family. She was used to being accompanied by her family, but he was destined to be uncertain when he would return home. There was no right or wrong. It was just that they were not suitable for each other. One wanted to escape from a family without a husband, while the other didn't have the heart to make up for it. Divorce was inevitable. However, he did not expect Six Brother to dislike his ex-wife so much. Back then, his ex-wife had just given birth to Six Brother when she asked for a divorce. Later on, he had begged her to wait until Six Brother grew up before they divorced. When he was 3 years old, his ex-wife's patience reached the limit. Du Wuqiang's wife, Li Chenglan, brought back a gigolo. Good boy. The gigolo was none other than his ex-wife's neighbor who lived in France from the age of 12 to 15. Chapter 1897. When the childhood sweetheart met again, she disregarded his persuasion and insisted on a divorce. When he came back from the army and saw Lu, who was as small as a radish, he couldn't bear it and wanted to pursue him again. However, when his ex-wife found out, she was so scared that she flew to France to avoid seeing him. He had met Lu 3 times. Once when he was 10 years old, once when he was 16, and once when he was admitted to the military academy. They had met 3 times, so why did he dislike his ex-wife so much? Commander-in-Chief Xia was also quite puzzled. The room was silent, as if no one wanted to talk to her. Mrs. Xiao, who was over 50 years old, lit a cigarette for herself and slowly took a puff. She smiled bitterly as she blew out a smoke ring. "It's fine if you two think I'm being unreasonable, But Xia Xinhui, it's an indisputable fact that I'm a Yuan's mother. It's something that can't be changed. Even if you don't want Yuan to acknowledge me, the blood relationship between a Yuan and me cannot be changed. It's my fault for going to the old house today to disturb the old lady's peace. Xinhui, how many years has it been since I last saw my son? It's been 10 years since he was 16, and now he's 26. When I contacted you, you avoided talking to me. When I introduced my friend's daughter to A Yuan, you didn't even mention it to A Yuan. You didn't want Yuan to meet me, so I could only go to the old house to find the old lady and beg her to let me see Yuan. Xia Jin Yuan originally wanted to accompany the guests, but now that he saw that they were obviously here for him, he had to stand up and say a few words. He was elegant and indifferent, and even his voice was flat and monotonous. Sorry to interrupt. Mrs. Xiao, who was smoking, saw Xia Jin Yuan talking to her and immediately showed joy on her face. However, as soon as she showed her joy, she froze in an instant. Xia Jin Yuan said calmly, I have to say something fair for my old man. Mrs. Xiao, all your thoughts are just self-righteous. First of all, my old man has never stopped me from meeting Ms. Xiao. On the contrary, back then, Ms. Xiao abandoned her husband and children for love and happiness. My old man often said that he had let Ms. Xiao down and couldn't blame you for leaving. He also told me to look at the photos of Ms. Xiao hugging me when I was free so that I would know that you actually love me very much. I'm sorry, but I didn't manage to do it. For what I can remember, Ms. Xiao always told me that if it weren't for me, you would have left the cage long ago. Mrs. Xiao, who was holding a cigarette between her fingers, turned pale when she heard this. The cigarette between her fingers fell onto the table in shock. She widened her eyes and looked at her son in disbelief. No, you, impossible. Secondly, when the old man knew that you were back, he called me and asked me to go and see you. When I was 10 and 16, the old man forced me to go and see you. If it weren't for the old man, Miss Xiao, even if you were kneeling in front of me, I wouldn't have lowered my head to look at you. At this moment, Madame Zhao's face was so pale that it was covered with a layer of white dust. Even her lips had lost their color. Thirdly, why do you think that you have the right to find a girlfriend for me? Back then, you were the one who abandoned your husband and children. You were also the one who turned a blind eye to me and my old man. When I needed you, you weren't there. Now that I don't need you anymore, you appear again and even want to introduce a girlfriend to me. Miss Xiao, why do you have to force me? Back then, my father didn't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, do you really think that a military marriage can be divorced so easily? Chapter 1898. Madame Xiao felt as if her entire body was soaked in a freezing cold pool. Waves of coldness were like knives cutting into her flesh and bones. It was too painful, too painful. Those words hurt too much. This was her son, the son she gave birth to after carrying him for 10 months. But he hated her to the core. Oh my God. She was such a failure in life that even her only family member hated her. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not have the habit of smoking. After hearing these words, he poured himself another cup of tea and sipped it without interrupting Xia Jin Yuan. She would not give up until all hope was gone. He wanted to save some face for her, but she insisted on falling out with him. She was already in her 50s. If she continued to lose face like this, who knew how she would live in the future? Xia Jin Yuan was a decisive person, especially when he saw that Madame Xiao had a good relationship with family Xia's political enemy. He knew that if he did not cut off the relationship, there would be trouble in the future. Madame Li was not a kind person. Some people became kinder as they got older, while some people became colder as they got older. Madame Li was the latter. In her eyes, only the Du family was the best. Family Xia had long been a thorn in her side. Who asked old man Xia to always be better than her husband? Since we've met today, I'll make things clear so that you won't blame the wrong person and think that old man Xia stopped me from letting you see me. You're wrong, Madame Xiao. You're really wrong. My father is a responsible man. He's a good old man who doesn't want his son to hate him. I'm the one who doesn't want to see you, not old man Xia. I don't dare to accept the women you introduced to me. I have to avoid all the things that you think are good in your eyes. I don't dare to accept them, and I'm also afraid of accepting them. I'm afraid that I'll accept your kindness. When I get married and have a child, I'll follow in old man Xia's footsteps and become both a father and a mother. I'll become an old man that no one wants. Yuan, don't say any more. It's Mom's fault. It's Mom's fault. Madame Xiao was sobbing uncontrollably. Mom was selfish. I only thought about myself and didn't think about you. Don't say any more. Mom was wrong. Mom was wrong. She cried sadly, but Xia Jinyuan was not moved at all. I don't have a mother. I only have an old man who is both a father and a mother. Don't keep calling me mother. I, Xia Jinyuan, have never called you that before, and I won't in the future. It's too late for you to blame yourself now. I've already grown up. When I was 16 years old, it was all thanks to you that I scolded the old man and said that he was irresponsible for raising me like a piece of trash. I sincerely thank you, Miss Xiao. It was all thanks to your scolding that I woke up to today's Xia Jinyuan. Tea in place of wine. Thank you for scolding me back then. If it wasn't for you calling me trash, I think I would have really become a trash instead of joining the army like an old man. Here's a toast to you. Feel free to do as you please. Xia Jinyuan finished the warm tea in one gulp and looked at Madame Xiao, whose makeup was all smudged from crying. He placed the tissue on the table and turned around. Wipe your face. I'm a cold-hearted person. I won't be moved even if you bleed and cry. Madame Xiao was crying so hard that she couldn't even open her eyes. Her son, he hated her so much. She was indeed self-righteous and thought that as long as they were related by blood, everything would be different. Chapter 1899. Her life had been too smooth. When she was young, she did not suffer the hardships of her peers. Before the age of 12, she lived the life of a rich young lady with servants waiting on her. When she was 12, she went to France. When she was 15, she went to England. When she was 22, she came back to study and met Xia Xinhui, the son of a rich family. He doted on her. When she was 28, she gave birth to a Yuan. When she was 31, she divorced her childhood sweetheart and flew to France to settle down. Until now, she was used to being flattered, chased, and envied by others. She had forgotten. Only those who loved her would do that. Those who did not love her would not let her do as she pleased. His son did not love her, so he would not let her do as she pleased. If he wanted to introduce a girlfriend to his son, he would just say that she was not qualified. He was well-mannered and left himself some dignity. His tears seemed to be unstoppable. Chief Commander Xiao winked at his son, who had a calm expression on his face. It was enough that he had said so much. If he continued, he might kill him. He was old, and his heart was not in good condition. If he got a heart attack because of the brat's provocation, he would be in trouble. Xia Jinyuan, who still had a lot to say, saw that the old man kept winking at him. He even reminded Yi Jian in the end. Only then did he swallow back the words he had yet to say. Seeing that it was getting late, Major Xia, who thought that he had made himself clear, got up gracefully and politely said goodbye. It's getting late. I have something to do. Excuse me, Miss Xiao. Have a good night. Goodbye. The old man had already given him a look. Fine, for the old man's sake, he would not say anything. He would leave Ms. Xiao, who was over 50 years old, with some dignity. However, if she was still stubborn, she could not blame him for being ruthless. Yi Qian, who had been waiting in the car for half an hour, saw a familiar figure walking out of the courtyard with high walls. His hands were in his trouser pockets, and his slender legs were walking step by step. His posture was relaxed, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll after a meal. There was not a trace of gloominess on his face. Yi Qian, who had his hand on the door handle, retracted it. It seemed that his mood was not affected. Not only was it not affected, but his steps were also much more relaxed than before he left. It seemed that Ms. Zhao's appearance did not have any impact. Yi Qian, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, stared at the tall figure walking over. She had to observe carefully. Captain Xia was very good at hiding his emotions. Her gaze fell on the car through the windshield, causing the major to look over as well. There were street lamps in the parking lot, and the dim yellow light illuminated the ground. It also faintly illuminated the beautiful face in the car. Xiao Jinyuan raised the corner of his mouth and quickened his pace. He didn't need another woman in his life. His little fox was enough. On the way to the hospital, Xiao Jinyuan mentioned Ms. Xiao. Yi Qian paid close attention to him and confirmed that his mood was not affected. Only then did he feel relieved. Xiao Jinyuan's mood was not affected, and neither was Commander-in-Chief Xia. Before leaving, he graciously asked his ex-wife where she was going, and he sent someone to send her back. Ms. Xiao had a villa in Beijing. Every time she returned to China, she would stay there. She had just been hurt by her own son, so she did not plan to go back early. She declined Commander-in-Chief Xia's kindness and said in a low voice, "I'll go find Old Du. You can go first." Old Du is the chief of staff Du. Chapter 1900. Madame Xiao didn't think there was anything wrong with interacting with the Du family. She and Li Chunlan met in France and called each other Sister-Lan. Later, they became closer and called each other by their names. They had known each other for 40 years. They had a good relationship and had close dealings with each other. Naturally, they were much closer. Commander-in-Chief Xia's face darkened when he heard that she was going to look for the Du family. He had to remind her, "You know the relationship between family Xia and the Du family. Although I Yuan didn't acknowledge you, you just said that you and I Yuan's bloodline can't be broken. It's your freedom to make friends with whoever you want. I won't interfere, but I hope you don't do anything to hurt your only bloodline. Du family, you have to know your limits." Madame Xiao frowned when she heard her ex-husband mention her good friend. She nodded elegantly. "The relationship between family Xia and the Du family has nothing to do with me. But since you mentioned a Yuan, then I know. Although I didn't raise him, I gave birth to him after 10 months of pregnancy. When I was young, I said something that hurt his heart. He remembers and resents me. This is retribution from God, telling me that I can't be too presumptuous. The cycle of reincarnation will not forgive anyone. I swallowed the bitter fruit that I sowed. No matter how a Yuan treats me, I asked for it. But if anyone wants to hurt a Yuan, I won't sit idly by. You can rest assured about this." At the end, Madame Xiao mocked herself deeply. Her reddened eyes were faintly glistening with tears. Although she was over 50 years old, time was kind to her. She didn't worry, didn't ask about things, and was good at maintaining her appearance. It was possible to say that she was no more than 40 years old. The coquettishness of her youth had accumulated for most of her life and became calm elegance. She had black hair, gentle eyebrows. Although she lived selfishly, she lived with understanding. She always knew what she wanted and always knew that she wouldn't hurt herself. This kind of person lived with understanding more than anyone else. Unfortunately, they lived with too much clarity. The things they did would always intentionally or unintentionally hurt others. If they wanted something good, even if it was built on the basis of hurting others, they would still get it. It was rare to see such people who lived with clarity. His ex-wife, Xiao Shuman, belonged to this type of person. She would never sacrifice herself to help others. Commander-in-Chief Xia looked at his beautiful ex-wife and nodded gently. "You know, I won't say much. I believe you can do it." As long as she understood, there was no need to worry. Sixth brother was her child after all. In the past, she abandoned sixth brother for her own happiness. Now that she was old, she knew that the fallen leaf had to return to its roots. She wanted to repair her relationship with sixth brother. Based on this point alone, he believed that Madame Xiao would not side with outsiders. One good thing about selfish people was that they always knew what was most important to them. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not offer to send his ex-wife back. He took his coat and nodded slightly at Ms. Xiao, who was still sitting there as if saying goodbye. Then, he opened the door and strode out. Outside the gate, Xiao Jinyuan instructed the plainclothes guard who had come forward. He said softly, "Commander-in-Chief, the car is parked outside." "All right, let's go." Mrs. Xiao, who had not moved, heard her ex-husband's authoritative voice. As the door of the private room slowly closed, all the sounds outside were cut off. Sigh. It seems that I'm really old. She poured herself a cup of hot tea and slowly took a sip of it in a refined manner. Even though there were wrinkles on the sides of her eyes that were once as bright as autumn waters, her temperament made the 54-year-old Madame Xiao age gracefully and calmly. Chapter 1901. She knew that she was a selfish person. Abandoning her husband and son was a treacherous thing in the past, but she never regretted it. It was useless to regret it now. After all, it was her own path. The only regret in her life was that she didn't expect that when she was old, she would want to talk to her son about life and listen to him talk to her. Unfortunately, her son was like her. He let go of things that he didn't want. She, as his mother, had been put down by him. He didn't need a mother's care in his world anymore. This was something she didn't expect. Schumann, why are you alone? Where's Xia? The closed door of the private room opened. Mrs. Li pushed the door open and entered. She saw Madame Xiao drinking tea alone. She was still as quiet as ever, as if she had never cried just now. She had a good life. No matter what, someone would stand up for her. This was where Li Chenglan couldn't compare to her. However, it was very different now. She had a son, but she didn't have one. Li Chenglan had 2 sons and 2 daughters. She had a prosperous family. She had a son to protect her family and a daughter to please her. Xiao Schumann could never compare to her in this aspect. Chenglan, come and sit with me. Yuan ordered black tea. It's quite to my liking. Madame Xiao smiled. She raised her hand elegantly and motioned for a friend to sit down and drink tea with her. Li Chenglan's eyes moved slightly. She sat beside her and said, "Did Xia do anything to you just now? Did he agree to let you meet Yuan? Although Xia has a bad temper and we can only let him do whatever he wants, he's still reasonable. If you communicate with him well, he'll definitely agree. If he doesn't agree, you can tell Old Du and me. We'll go and find him. I'll look for Xia outside, and Old Du will look for him in the military. Let's see if he dares to avoid you. In my opinion, you're too soft and don't know how to fight. If Old Du and I were here just now, Xia would have to give Old Du some face." She had lived a wonderful life for most of her life, but she couldn't even see her only son in her old age. Alas, what was the use of living a wonderful life in the past? In the end, it was only right to see who would have the last laugh. "You're almost 60 years old. Why haven't you changed your bad temper? How's some black tea?" Madame Xiao smiled faintly. She poured tea for her old friend and handed it to her. "Old Xia didn't stop me from seeing Yuan. It's Yuan who doesn't like me now. I can't blame anyone but myself. There's no hurry. It's my fault for not raising her. I'm sorry, Chenglan. I've implicated you and Old Du to worry about me. I'll settle this matter myself in the future. I won't trouble you anymore." However, Madame Li was not happy. Instead, she pulled a long face angrily. "What are you saying? Why are you being so polite to me? Shirley doesn't have to stop you now. Yuan has grown up. Why should he be the bad guy?" What he meant was that Commander-in-Chief Xia had stopped him in the past because Xia Jinyuan was still young. Now that Xia Jinyuan had grown up and believed that his mother did not want him, Commander-in-Chief Xia had achieved his goal, so it did not matter if he did not stop him. Li Chenglan was already a grandmother. She would not lower herself to get involved in other people's affairs. However, she had to get involved in family Xia matters. When she was young, she could stir up a family Xia. Now that she was old, she still had the ability to cause trouble for the younger generation of family Xia. Chapter 1902. He sighed again. "Your business is my business. We've known each other for more than 40 years. You don't have any siblings, and you've also lost contact with your hometown. Seeing you all alone, my heart aches. Why don't I help you? Old Xia is a stubborn donkey. Old Du and I have experienced it. We should talk about this matter together. With your strength alone, you won't be able to do it. Old Xia is no longer a small regiment commander. He is now the commander-in-chief. If he wants to, Schumann, you won't be able to win against him." These words were nothing after hearing them too much. She might be influenced when she was young, but it would be difficult when she was old. Madame Xiao, who was listening quietly, did not interrupt her. She sat there gracefully with a gentle smile on her lips. She was as silent as a painting. After her friend finished speaking, she smiled and said, "Old Xia has never been a bad person. You are still biased against him. All right, let's not talk about the father and son. Is Jai here yet? I miss her so much." She changed the topic lightly. Madame Li's eyes dimmed before she smiled and said, "She's here. She's here. When she didn't see you, she made a fuss. I was pushed out by her to look for you. Then why are we still sitting here? Let's go. We can't let her wait too long." Madame Xiao stood up happily and said, "Daughters are still the best. Daughters are their mother's intimate little jackets. Chenglan, you are so blessed." Who didn't like their children being praised? Madame Li's greatest sense of accomplishment was that she had 2 sons and 2 daughters. She smiled, and the crow's feet at the corner of her eyes deepened. "I can't compare to you. You are someone who can take things and let them go." The 2 of them walked out of the private room while talking and laughing. Madame Xiao smiled and sighed. "I was thinking about whether to make Jai and Ayuan together. What a pity." "What was a pity?" Madame Xiao didn't say it. Li Chenglan smiled and didn't say anything. It was a pity that family Xia and the Du family had different political views. They were destined not to be in-laws. When they returned home, Madame Li told them everything. Chief of Staff Du's face was solemn. After thinking for a long time, he said, "Did Xiao Schumann understand something when she suddenly asked us not to interfere? What does she want to understand? Old Du, Schumann is not stupid. She knows best when she is alive." Mrs. Li, who was lying in the massage chair and relaxing, said lightly, "I've known her for 40 years. I know her and she knows me. She knows what I've done. She doesn't expose me because those things have nothing to do with her. Schumann never worries about things that have nothing to do with her." Chief of Staff didn't understand what his wife said. In his eyes, Xiao Schumann was a person who couldn't tell the difference between grain and grain. She had someone to do everything for her. She didn't have any opinions at all. You said that she knows how to live, but I think she's just a muddle-headed person. I don't understand the things between you women, and I'm too lazy to figure it out. As long as Xia Xinhui doesn't have a chance to be promoted in the next 2 years, I'll be at ease. Women sought the hearts of the people at home, while men sought power outside. What Chief of Staff Du needed was power and power. I'll do my business, and you do yours. We're both grandparents. It's okay to be a little muddle-headed occasionally. Madame Li didn't say what she would do next. She closed her eyes as if she were sleeping. She was old and felt tired after a little effort. It was impossible for her not to worry about it. Chapter 1903. The mountain that blocked the Du family had not been dug out yet. She still had a son and a daughter who had not started a family yet. Even though her grandchildren had been born, she could not admit that she was old and had to continue to plan. As Madame Li was calculating her mind, Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian had returned to the hospital early and chatted with Principal Chun for a long time. They had not seen Principal Chun for several months, so they had a lot to say to him. Yi Qian mentioned what had happened in school, on the training ground, and with his classmates. As for the joint training of the 2 teams, he did not mention a word. Yi Qian knew what should be said and what should not be said. Fighting is actually a foreign thing to me. When I saw my classmate being bullied and forced into an alley, I rushed over. A group of motley crew thought that they were great. Seeing them made me angry, so I joined hand with a few boys to teach them a lesson. Yi Qian mentioned that before the joint training, Su-Wen had been forced by several gangsters, and then they had fought together. He mentioned Song Jiqiu. I didn't expect him to be Yang Heng's cousin. I met an acquaintance. Yang Heng. Is he the son of Director Yang of the Transportation Bureau? Xia Jinyuan was no stranger to Yi Qian's high school life. He knew all the boys and girls around her. Do you still remember him? Yes, he is Director Yang's son. Song Jiqiu told me that he has gone to Australia to study. Yi Qian said in a low voice. Her voice was as clear as the water in the mountains, tinkling happily. When she smiled, her eyes curved like the crescent moon above the treetops. Looking at her, Xia Jinyuan felt a little warm in his heart. He liked her smile very much. It was bright, pure, and full of hope for life. Principal Chun listened to her. His face was still a little gloomy, but the smile on his thin face never disappeared. This girl seemed to be living a good life. She completed her studies and trained hard at the same time. She achieved excellent results again and again. As Commander-in-Chief Xia said, she could shine by herself without any support. Talents were hard to come by, and an all-round talent like Little Yi was even harder to come by. The army had entered a period of reform, and the same was true for the grassroots companies. In the future, the soldiers would no longer have junior high school education as the main force. They would gradually develop towards high school and university education. Improving the quality of the entire army was part of the reform. Last year had come at a good time, a good opportunity. The three of them had no choice but to stop when the doctor arrived at 11 o'clock. The two of them didn't stay at the hospital to accompany them. They were directly sent to the hotel by Principal Chun to rest. He said, "If the two of you sleep outside, you're clearly trying to make me lose sleep. Little Xia, bring Little Yi to a hotel. She has an exam the day after tomorrow. How is she going to take the exam if she doesn't have the energy?" Yi Qian still had to take the exam the day after tomorrow, and her goal was to get the title of outstanding student directly after graduation. It wasn't easy to get this title. Her exam results and physical fitness scores had to be at the top. If she made a mistake, she would miss the opportunity. Xia Jinyuan moved 2 folding beds over and planned to stay with Yi Qian. Principal Chen obviously wouldn't agree. His face darkened, and he said to Xia Jinyuan, "Little Xia, if she's unreasonable and doesn't listen to advice in the future, just come back and tell me. I'll talk to her. She needs to be taught a lesson sometimes. She can only do as she pleases." How can she? You can't just go along with everything she does. You have to persist in what you have to. Chapter 1904. Yi Qian was dumbfounded. He instantly thought that Xia Jinyuan would have someone to rely on in the future. Principal Chen's words tonight were definitely a big gain for Xia Jinyuan. He raised his eyebrows at Yi Qian, looking quite proud of himself. Seeing his proud expression, Yi Qian secretly clenched his fists. "Uncle Chun, you don't know how thick-skinned the guy in front of you is, and he has a lot of hands and feet. You're asking me to sleep in a hotel? You're sending me to the tiger's den." He was too embarrassed to say it out loud, so he could only scream silently in his heart. The doctor asked them to leave as soon as possible, but Principal Chun waved his hand to chase them away. Yi Qian had no choice but to take his luggage and go to the hotel. The hotels near the General Military Hospital were all busy, and the affordable rooms were already fully booked. As Major Xia had requested, they booked a luxurious suite that most people wouldn't be willing to spend money on. There was a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and a balcony with a view. Even though the hotel receptionist said that their rooms were very good, Yi Qian didn't give up and asked again, "Are you sure you don't have a standard room? Are you sure there aren't any guests who have checked out?" The management of a 5-star hotel wasn't so messy that they didn't know how many rooms there were. The receptionist gave a standard smile and explained patiently, "Hello, madam. There really aren't any rooms available. Someone didn't want to stay in this room and checked out at the last minute. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any rooms available." Xia Jinyuan, who had paid the deposit and received the room card, saw that she was still unwilling to give up. His thin lips curled up a few times, and he carried her luggage towards the elevator. "If you came early, you could still book 2 rooms. It's good enough that you came in the middle of the night to get a room. I didn't expect Uncle Chun to be so insistent." Yi Jian chased after him. It was not that they had never slept in the same room before. It was just that the man beside her always liked to say mushy things when no one was around. However, after thinking about it for a while, Yi Jian felt that her face was already red at this time. Xia Jinyuan had already seen her unnatural expression from the elevator mirror. TSK, TSK, TSK. She was still so easily embarrassed. The more shy she was, the more he wanted to do this. Even though he was in military uniform, he still couldn't change the bad habit he had since he was young. It had been a long time since they had shared bed. Should they chat until dawn tonight? Perhaps they could do something adults should do? As this thought flashed through his mind, the young major's sexy Adam's apple couldn't help but move slightly. Doing some adult things. He really wanted to. Xia Jinyuan began to think. When he looked at Yi Qian again with his noble eyes, there was a hint of flirtatiousness in his eyes. He also saw Yi Qian subtly take a small step back. Yi Qian felt an inexplicable sense of danger. He looked at him warily, then glared at him fiercely. "You'd better behave yourself. We're here." After receiving her warning, Xia Jinyuan was very calm. The elevator door opened with a ding. He pressed the button and asked Yi Qian to go out first. "It's late. Take a shower first. I'll go make the bed. We booked a suite. There's one bedroom and one living room. There will be a sofa in the living room. I'll sleep on the sofa and you'll sleep on the bed." Yi Qian, who came out first, stopped in his tracks. He looked back at the man with the luggage in disbelief. Why did it feel so surreal all of a sudden? Her reaction made the seemingly serious major laugh in his heart. He began to tease Yi Qian, who couldn't be any more serious. He deliberately said, "Huh? You don't want to? You can't bear for me to sleep on the sofa, so you want me to sleep with you on the bed?" He was too serious. Yi Qian was even more certain that he wasn't going to be so honest. "Captain Xia, I won't believe you even if you suddenly become serious." Yi Qian took the room card from his hand. He glanced at him lightly, then took the room card away and strode in. Chapter 1905. She didn't notice that the man behind her had a dark look in his deep, smiling eyes. His slightly raised smile was both good and evil. It was a smile that could mesmerize women even more. The room was worth the price. Just as the receptionist said, the living room was very spacious, and there was a very long corner sofa. The sofa faced a large balcony with a view of the night view of Beijing. The view was so wide that it was indeed relaxing. Looking at the sofa that was big enough for one person to sleep on, Yi Qian was already planning to take out a blanket from the cabinet and cover it with it when he went to take a shower so that he wouldn't be allowed to enter the bedroom. Although they had slept together and it wasn't as stressful to face him again, the evil smile on his face in the elevator just now made her heart beat wildly. She had to be more vigilant against this dangerous yet elegant man. "Go take a shower first. I'll make the bed." Xia Jinyuan put down his luggage and took the initiative to find the cabinet. He took out 2 layers of spare blankets from the cabinet and carefully laid them on the sofa. Yi Qian watched as he came out with the blankets. He stretched out his long arms and familiarly shook off the blankets without her help. "Hurry up. I can make the bed myself." The major frowned slightly as he shook off the blankets, as if he didn't understand why she was still standing there. He simply threw the blankets in his hands onto the sofa, walked up to her, and asked in a low voice, "Is there anything else you want to talk to me about?" Yi Qian pursed her lips and pointed at the sofa. "You are taking the initiative. I'm still not used to it." After she finished speaking, she looked at him, trying to find something from his handsome features. However, the man standing in front of her was calm and composed, and his gaze was gentle and deep. It was as if there was a dark look in his eyes, but also as if there was nothing. Xia Jinyuan chuckled, and his sexy thin lips curved slightly. The evil smile that flashed past in the elevator was now on his handsome face. "Little fox, you're making things difficult for me. I don't know what to do to satisfy you. If you don't let me sleep on the bed, I won't sleep on the bed. Now that I've chosen the sofa, you're saying that there's a problem. Then tell me what's wrong with me." She wouldn't be standing here if she could. Seeing his face getting closer and closer, Yi Qian immediately bent down to pick up the luggage and avoided his kiss. "You make the bed. I'll take a shower first." "Forget it. Counter soldiers with arms, water with earth weir." "All right, do you want some water? I'll go pour a pot of water." "Sure." Yi Qian went straight into the bedroom and closed the door behind him. Even though the door was tightly shut, it could not stop Xia Jinyuan from looking at her in the dark. He might let her escape now, but later he would not let her escape again. When Yi Qian came out of the shower, he saw Xia Jinyuan holding the kettle and bending over to pick up the corner of the blanket that had fallen on the carpet. The water was flowing out of the kettle. Just as Yi Qian said, "Be careful," Yi Qian gasped. The kettle in his hand fell onto the blanket, and steam rose from it. "Scalded? Quick, rinse it with cold water." Yi Jian rushed over and grabbed the wrist of the man who was shaking his hand because of the burn. "Why are you still shaking your hand? Rinse it with cold water." Xia Jinyuan looked at the scalded skin on the back of his hand. Although it hurt a little, it was worth it. Rinse it for a long time so that it won't blister. Don't you know that you should put the kettle down before picking up the blanket? Yi Qian turned on the tap and placed his hand under the blanket. He frowned and stared at the scalded area. "I'll ask the front desk if they have any burn ointment." Chapter 1906. The front desk quickly sent a waiter to bring some burn ointment. When Yi Qian heard the door open, he motioned for Xia Jinyuan to continue rinsing the burn with water while he quickly went to open the door. After turning down the water flow, Xia Jinyuan saw his lover smiling and thanking the waiter. He glanced at the burn that was about the size of a coin, and his thin lips couldn't help but curl up again. Burn was really not part of his plan. His plan was to accidentally spill all the water when he bent down to pick up the quilt and wet it. If the quilt was wet, he would have an excuse to share the bed with her. He wasn't afraid that she would ask the waiter to bring another quilt. He would always have a solution. However, no matter how good his plan was, he still made a mistake. He didn't expect to burn himself. Although it hurt, it was worth it. Outside, Yi Qian declined the waiter's kindness, closed the door, and hurried back to the kitchen with the burn. "It's just a small burn. You don't have to go to the hospital." "Thank you." Burns are the most common injuries in life. Even the most cautious people couldn't avoid them. Yi Qian didn't suspect that Xia Jinyuan did it on purpose. When Yi Qian hurried back to the kitchen, he saw Xia Jinyuan wiping his hands with a dry towel. Before leaving the hospital, both of them wore a dark-colored coat in their luggage to cover their winter military uniforms. When they entered the room, they habitually took off their coats and hung them in the wardrobe at the side of the entrance. They were both wearing their winter uniforms. The tall and straight man was wearing a dark green military uniform that was tailored to his masculinity. He stood in the shadows of the spotlights. His unruly short hair, exquisite and elegant side profile, and the natural elegance that flowed out from his every move could inadvertently make people who were familiar with him fall into a trance. His hands were slender and didn't become tanned even after being exposed to the elements. After being rinsed with water, they were so fair that they looked like pearls. No one would think that these were a pair of hands that held guns, but rather a pair of slender hands that lingered on the black and white piano keys. Although his hands were beautiful, the burn on the back of his hand was an eyesore. Yi Qian frowned again. "It should take 10 minutes to rinse. You only took 5 minutes. It's not serious. 5 minutes is enough." Xia Jinyuan set up the towel and turned to look at his lover, who was frowning. He laughed and said, "Don't look like that. It's not a big deal. It's just a small burn." Yi Qian retracted her gaze from his handsome face and took a deep breath. She calmed herself down before approaching him. "This is a cooling ointment. Apply it first, then apply it again after you're done bathing. Remember to avoid hot water when you're bathing." Yi Qian held the pair of hands that countless women wanted to hold. He squeezed out a light green ointment that smelled cool and refreshing and carefully applied a thin layer of it. He lowered his eyes and reminded her softly, "Next time, remember to put down the boiling water in your hands first before doing anything else. It's not too bad today. It's only a small burn on the back of your hand. Even if it leaves a scar, it won't affect anything. What if you burn your face? Captain Xia, even if you don't become a soldier one day, you can definitely rely on your face to make a living after you retire. You should take good care of such a good resource." As a woman, of course she was happy that her boyfriend was handsome. Everyone loved beauty, and she was no exception. Major Xia was speechless. "Little fox, I didn't expect you to care so much about your appearance. I've heard you tell me several times to take good care of my face. Chapter 1907. Of course I care. Since I found myself a good-looking boyfriend, of course I'd like to look at a good-looking face every day. Yi Jian said confidently and raised her hand to touch his face. Your face was born to make women commit crimes. Now I'm taking the risk of being stabbed by other women to take down the owner of this face. If you don't protect it well, you'll be letting me down. It felt good to be taken advantage of by his girlfriend. Even if it was because of his face, Major Xia thought it was because of his charm. His face was his, so naturally he was charming. Looks like I'll have to take good care of you. I'm afraid that if my face gets disfigured one day, my little fox will abandon me because of that. Yi Qian nodded seriously and said responsibly, That's right. In the future, we'll have to look at your face. If your face gets disfigured while I'm still as beautiful as a flower, wouldn't you feel inferior? Good Lord, she's getting bolder. She's making fun of me so skillfully. She was already smiling like a flower. She glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. Under the hazy white light of the spotlights, the girl with the fragrance of a bath really looked like a fox demon. She was so charming that she could hook people's hearts. Xia Jinyuan gradually stopped smiling. His dark eyes turned deep, like an unfathomable ancient well that locked the person who was reflecting the water. He suddenly took a step closer to her. His sudden action startled Yi Qian. She instinctively dodged to the side and pressed her, but against the counter. She looked at the approaching man warily. What are you doing? I'm just telling the truth. Could it be that you're angry? There were too many unfathomable dark colors flowing in his eyes, and there were even specks of starlight flashing through them. The young major who had been so noble and outstanding just a moment ago was now filled with danger from head to toe. It wasn't the danger of pure darkness, but the danger of temptation. The dangerous major and the elegant man made her a little flustered. Xia Jinyuan calmly looked at Yi Qian, who had nowhere to run. His thin lips curved slightly as he took a step forward and instantly pulled her into his arms. His chest was very broad, firm, and gave off a sense of security. Yi Qian actually bumped into his own chest when he was suddenly pulled by him, and it hurt a little. Yi Qian raised his head and stared unblinkingly at the handsome, domineering face in front of him. He swallowed with some difficulty. This kind of Xia Jinyuan, although dangerous, still made her heart race. She had to admit that the reason she had agreed to him on impulse in her third year of high school had a lot to do with this elegant face in front of her. Even though they had known each other for 5 or 6 years now, every time she looked at his facial features, her heart would race uncontrollably. Fortunately, she had good self-control. Otherwise, she suspected that she would have pounced on him in advance and made the first move to gain the upper hand. For a moment, Yi Qian was lost in thought as he stared at the major's handsome face. Do you like my face that much? Would it be more convenient for you to look at it if I stood closer? He lowered his head and leaned over. His deep voice sounded, and there was a deep affection for her in his sexiness, as well as the indulgence of a man toward a woman. Wouldn't it be more convenient if I looked at it like this? Or should we look at it while touching it? He held Yi Qian's hand and pressed it against his cheek. He asked her in a low voice, Wouldn't it be more enjoyable? The palm of her hand pressed against his cheek, and the warm touch made Yi Qian shiver violently. Before she could fully recover from her shock, her heart melted from the adoration in his eyes. Chapter 1908. Yi Jian, who thought that she could face him calmly, could not resist such a gentle attack. She wanted to resist, but what she got in return was his indulgence. I'm born with a pretty face. Can I only let you look at it? I won't show it to anyone else. Other than you, I won't show it to another woman, okay? HM, answer me, okay? Captain Xia, where did you learn all these sweet nothings? It used to be mushy, but now it was even more mushy. Her ears felt like they were on fire just from hearing it. Yi Jian knew that she couldn't hold on any longer. His handsome face was getting closer and closer. His breath had completely surrounded her. There was no way she could escape. Slightly, what's wrong? Don't you want to have me all to yourself? He pressed her hand down and let her palm caress his handsome face, interrupting her words. Slightly what? Do you still need to think about it? His thin lips slowly curved into an unrestrained, flirtatious smile. A clean me, a clean face. Little fox, don't you want to have me all to yourself? I only belong to you, and I'm only willing to show it to you. Are you not willing? Willing. 10 million willing. Yi Qian nodded frantically. Something was wrong. Captain Xia was very strange tonight. His words were too profound. He was handsome, said sweet nothings, and looked at her with such deep affection. This was great. Even her legs were starting to turn to jelly. Yi Qian touched his face with her right hand and blocked his body with her left hand. She was trying to calm herself down. She pursed her lips and said softly, "You can say whatever you want, but you're too close. I can't see it clearly. Why don't you back away a little more? You don't have to back away too far. Just 2 or 3 steps will do." Her face was red, her heart was in a mess, and even her legs started to tremble. The Major's skills were improving day by day. Even if she chased after him, in the end, she still could not win. Xia Jinyuan did not believe it. Once this cunning fox in front of him realized there was danger, her first reaction would be to run. She wanted to run? Sorry, he didn't want to see her escape at all. The more she escaped, the more he wanted to make her stay. Let's see where else she could escape to. The kitchen is only so big. I can't retreat too far. The distance is just right. The Major, who had begun to reveal his hunter's nature, leisurely circled around his beloved prey. His waist bent a little more, forcing Yi Qian to stand on his tiptoes and lean back against the counter. It's hard to see clearly in this position, right? Why don't we change to another position to look at it? At 26 or 27 years old, he was so clean that no one would believe him. Tonight's main course won't be served. Let's have a side dish. Young people were full of vigor and vigor. Being alone in a room with their beloved, it would be too abnormal for a single man and woman to not do anything. Yi Qian was extremely regretful right now. She clearly knew that the man in front of her was a dangerous man. She didn't have a high level of cultivation, but she still dared to flirt with him first. She brought this upon herself. What's more, changing a position. Although she was a little dizzy now, it was not to the point where she lost her rationality and her heart. Washing his hands in the kitchen or applying medicine, he could do all sorts of things. Changing the position, the sofa in the living room, the big bed in the bedroom. If they changed the position, there would be more tricks up his sleeves. How could she be fooled? Chapter 1909. Yi Qian, who sensed danger, tried her best to look calm. The corners of her lips curled up slightly as she blinked and said delicately, "I haven't been sleeping well recently, so my eyes are a little tired. Everything I see is a little blurry, so it's the same in another place." That was a good excuse, but for someone as thick-skinned as Major Xia, it was only a matter of time before her excuse was exposed. His brows furrowed slightly. His indulgent indulgence already contained a hint of heartache. His slender fingers caressed her eyebrows, and his slightly calloused fingers gently rubbed the side of her eyebrows. "I'll help you relax. You just have to close your eyes." Relax and close my eyes. Captain Xia, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Close my eyes and relax. She would only be more nervous. Yi Qian laughed dryly. No need. Go take a shower now. I'll just apply a hot towel to your eyes. It's almost midnight, Captain Xia. You can really go take a shower now. Yi Qian, who was pressed against the counter, moved sideways to the right. There was a door on the right, so she had to rush out. However, the two of them were too close, and she was tiptoeing. She purposely left Xia Jinyuan with her tiptoes, and the 1 centimeter distance between them was reduced to nothing. Although there was still some distance between their upper bodies, their lower bodies were so close together that they couldn't be any closer. Xia Jinyuan was a little stiff, and it was obvious from the way he held her hand tightly. He didn't expect Yi Qian's movement to actually let her experience what a normal man was like. He was indeed addicted to saying sweet nothings, but he still controlled the distance between their lower bodies very well, so as not to startle his little fox. He didn't have much self-control left when it came to her, so he used the last bit of self-control to control the distance between their lower bodies. Now, the last bit of distance between them was broken. Xia Jinyuan looked at Yi Qian, who was completely stiff, and his handsome face was slightly embarrassed. It's a normal man's reaction. Don't be too surprised. It didn't seem appropriate to call him a hooligan, calling him indecent. It wasn't as if she had just found out that he was indecent. Calling him impatient didn't seem appropriate. She had told herself before that the word impatient had long been wiped clean from his dictionary. With the relationship between the two of them, it would be too pretentious to scold her. Yi Qian's brain spun as he used the hand that could still move to push against his chest. His lower body was really too close. He could feel even the slightest change in his body. It was very sturdy and full of manly strength. It was also very scary. He could feel the scorching heat through their clothes. Previously, when he had washed his hands by the stream after completing a mission in the southern province, he had also felt it when he rolled into the grass. However, that was in the grass. Now that he was in a room, his mood was different, and the changes he could feel were also different. Her gaze drifted away as she gently reminded him, "I'm not surprised. Go and take a shower first. Don't overeat, cough. Don't overeat." At this critical moment, Yi Qian stopped himself from saying the last words. He stopped so quickly that he even bit his own tongue. There was still a hint of blood and rust in his mouth. Unfortunately, although she only said the word overeat, it was still out loud, and the man opposite her instantly understood what she wanted to say. As soon as she blushed, Xia Jinyuan stood up. He was a thick-skinned person. His normal reaction was caught off guard by his girlfriend. He felt as if he had been caught red-handed doing something bad, which made him a little embarrassed for a moment. Chapter 19:10. Now that she was blushing, he let go of her. Blushing meant that she knew and understood. She knew that men were impulsive and understood that a man's body would change when he was impulsive. Was there a need for him to blush? There was no need at all. However, Major Xia did not continue to press against her. Forget about the kitchen. Both of them were newbies. They could explore the kitchen when they were more familiar with it. He took the initiative to distance himself from her and let go of her hand at the same time. He placed his hands on the countertop and locked her in his arms. "Are you trying to say that you shouldn't burst?" As he spoke, he let out a low chuckle. His mellow laughter was so sexy that it made one's heart go numb. "If it was that easy to burst, I would have burst several times in front of you." Yi Qian had the urge to knock herself out. How could she say such things, especially to him? She knew that he would take advantage of her. "No, I'm saying that you should stop messing with me. You can take a shower and sleep." The commander-in-chief had repeatedly reminded her not to let him take advantage of her. Otherwise, she would be the one at a disadvantage. Yi Qian composed herself and pretended to be scared. "Hurry up and take a shower. You smell like disinfectant. I don't like it." His gaze was really scary. It was as if he wanted to eat her up. Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled at his lover, who was blushing. He smiled meaningfully. "Okay, go back to the room and wait for me." Go back to the room and wait for him? She was dreaming. Yi Qian smiled and nodded. "Okay, hurry up and go." Seeing that he was about to get up, he said, "You bit your tongue just now, right? Are you going to spit it out for me to see? Or should I put my hand in to check?" He always gave her a fright. Yi Qian took several deep breaths and suppressed the heat on her face. "No, I'll just swallow my saliva. I don't need to trouble you." Whether he spat it out or did something else, the result would be the same. Rejecting him was the best choice. Xia Jinyuan, who knew what was right and proper, did not press her any further. His little fox could not be pushed too hard. If he pushed her too hard, she might escape to the hospital to look after Uncle Chun. He would wait until he took a shower and went into the room before slowly grinding with her. He would leave the main dishes aside for the time being, but he would have to try the side dishes. "That's good. You check if the bite is serious. I'm going to take a shower." Finally, Major Xia Jinyuan withdrew his hands and stood up straight. Naturally, he also straightened his back. Yi Qian lowered his gaze and accidentally glanced at his most spectacular part. His heart skipped a few beats. He cleared his throat guiltily and turned to face the door. I got it. Go do what you need to do. I know what to do. Usually, she really couldn't see anything different, but now that she saw it, even her vision was severely impacted. It was simply too spectacular. Xiao Jinyuan had always been satisfied with his figure and was quite confident in his masculine features. Looking at Yi Qian, whose neck had turned red, he took a deep breath. Although her gaze was insubstantial, he could feel the tenderness that brushed past him. It made him tremble slightly. She was really a torturer. Yi Qian did not know that he was a torturer. As soon as he stepped into the bathroom, she went back to her room and immediately locked the door. Yi Qian, whose back was against the door, was breathing heavily. There was danger tonight. She had to be on guard. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.